Chapter 152 The chi in Bailey Hongzhuang's body stirred, mysterious Ian initial stage power erupting into the air. Mysterious Ian initial stage. Bailey Yuyan was terrified as she watched, stormy waves appearing in her heart, an indescribable shock engulfing her. How could Bailey Hongzhuang reach mysterious Ian initial stage? Before, she and Bailey Hongzhuang lived together. She was very familiar with Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. How could Trash reach mysterious Ian initial stage and become such a gifted genius in such a short time? You must know, although her cultivation was also at the initial stage of mysterious Ian, she was 1 year older than Bailey Hongzhuang. Although a 1 year gap looked like nothing to ordinary people, she knew the disparity in talent. With a 1 year difference, in the future, the gap could grow even bigger. She just couldn't imagine the Trash that she always humiliated under the sole of her feet would actually turn out to be even more gifted than her. Xianyuan Huan had a self-deprecating smile on his face. Before he had used every possible way to mock Bailey Hongzhuang when in fact, in her eyes he was the real fool. Mysterious Ian initial staged cultivation at 15 years old was fully deserving of being called a genius. Ding ding ding. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm as she faced the vicious storm wolf without the slightest trace of fear. Her long double-edged suddenly stabbed forward. Each strike left behind a cut on the storm wolf's body. Bailey Yuyan watched, her heart filled with endless jealousy. Her body was covered in wounds without even one hit landing on the storm wolf. But Bailey Hongzhuang only used one strike to cut the wolf. Was there really such a big difference between the two of them? Woo! The storm wolf couldn't help but howl loudly as Bailey Hongzhuang struck again and again. It could sense that this person was far stronger than the other two. The storm wolf's figure was like lightning, quickly disappearing before Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. That was the most troublesome part about a storm wolf. Its speed was too fast for the eye to see. By the time the cultivator finally adjusted, the storm wolf would have already striked. Bailey Yuyan sneered in her heart. Bailey Hongzhuang was just talking big. She wanted to see what Bailey Hongzhuang would do now. But only a moment passed before Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan were astonished to find that Bailey Hongzhuang's figure had already disappeared from sight. Bailey Hongzhuang's shadow shifted. Shadow shifting was the Lin family's most outstanding movement skill, its effects naturally needn't be said. Ding! A sound rang out in the air. Hearing it, Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan knew that was where Bailey Hongzhuang and the storm wolf were fighting. Bailey Hongzhuang and the storm wolf's speeds were actually comparable to each other. Bailey Yuyan and Xianyuan Huan could finally see Bailey Hongzhuang's true speed. The storm wolf's speed didn't win against Bailey Hongzhuang's at all. In fact, the storm wolf was even faintly suppressed by her. Bailey Yuyan's face slowly changed as she watched. Bailey Hongzhuang's growth was just too fast. She couldn't let Bailey Hongzhuang continue anymore, or else it'd be impossible for her to kill Bailey Hongzhuang later. If she took advantage of the time while Bailey Hongzhuang was dealing with the storm wolf to mount a sneak attack, Bailey Hongzhuang definitely wouldn't be her opponent. Bailey Hongzhuang's hatred and Su Wanjing's expectations floated into her mind. Bailey Yuyan's face turned merciless. She no longer hesitated, picking up her weapon to attack Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 153 What a Despicable Woman. Little Black cursed. This was the first time he had ever seen someone be so shameless. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was cold, her eyes turning icy. That's just Bailey Yuyan's style. Since she wants to die, there's no reason for us to stop her. Her pitch-black pupils glowed with cold killing intent. Today is the day she personally kills Bailey Yuyan. Ding ding ding. The two weapons clashed. A sinister smile sat on Bailey Yuyan's face. Bailey Hongzhuang, so what if you're a genius? I definitely won't let you leave the hunting grounds alive. Such trash, you don't have the skill. Bailey Hongzhuang ridiculed. Hearing the contempt in Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, Bailey Yuyan's face turned ugly, impudent. Let's see how much longer you can act so arrogant. When Xianyuan Huan saw Bailey Yuyan actually mount a sneak attack on Bailey Hongzhuang, his face was shocked. Bailey Yuyan's actions were simply too outrageous. He had thought that Bailey Yuyan wanted to kill the Storm Wolf, not kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Yuyan's heart was truly too poisonous. He wanted to step up and protect Bailey Hongzhuang, but the arm that was bitten couldn't even hold a weapon. Fighting with one hand behind his back, only half of his fighting strength could come out. If he stepped forward, he was afraid that the Storm Wolf would directly bite off his neck in one move. Under the Storm Wolf and Bailey Yuyan's attacks, Bailey Hongzhuang's advantage slowly started to slip away. After all, they were all at the initial stage of Mysterious Ian. Little Black didn't know when he had jumped onto Bailey Yuyan's body. He only knew that this woman was simply too shameless, he just had to teach her a lesson. Bailey Yuyan attacked Bailey Hongzhuang's vital organs relentlessly. Suddenly, she frowned. A burst of pain appeared on the back of her head, but when she looked, there was nothing behind her. This was only Little Black's first attack. Very soon, intolerable pain stabbed at Bailey Yuyan's back, forcing her to retreat from the fight. She struggled to look at her back, but she still wasn't able to see clearly. But the thick bloodstains left on the ground told her that her back was already wounded. Her scarred face turned confused. Bailey Yuyan looked around suspiciously. Was there another person secretly attacking from somewhere in the forest? But after looking around and finding nothing, Bailey Yuyan prepared to jump back into the fight. But just as Bailey Yuyan moved, another stab of pain pierced her back. Who's attacking me? Bailey Yuyan shouted angrily. This feeling when she couldn't find who was doing it was just too unbearable. Nobody answered her. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bailey Yuyan indifferently. She knew that it was Little Black and Little White. Borrowing this opportunity, she could quickly deal with the Storm Wolf before finally finishing off Bailey Yuyan. Bailey Hongzhuang unleashed all her strength, raising her long, double-edged sword, she prepared to fight directly with the Storm Wolf. Seeing this, Xianyuan Huan could only think Bailey Hongzhuang was mad. A demonic beast's body was very strong. The human body simply couldn't even begin to compare to it. He had never seen a cultivator actually dare to recklessly face a demonic beast up front, but now it was happening in front of his very eyes. Breaking storm. Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly. The qi stored within her body rotated strangely, forming a tyrannical force above her fists. Bailey Hongzhuang's shadow shifted, her fist like lightning as she punched the Storm Wolf's waist with a boom. She used her strongest and most powerful attack to strike at the Storm Wolf's weakness. She wanted to kill the Storm Wolf as soon as possible. This was the best way. Bang! A loud bang echoed. Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Yuyan could only see a body fly in the air, landing heavily on the ground, making a cloud of dust. When the two saw the body on the ground, they sucked in a cold breath. It was the Storm Wolf. They were very clear about just how powerful the Storm Wolf was. But Bailey Hongzhuang just used a fist to send the Storm Wolf flying. Bailey Hongzhuang took advantage of the confusion to attack. Her sword reappeared in her hands, stabbing into the Storm Wolf's struggling body. Qi! Blood squirted into the air. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent as she briskly waved her sword, taking its demonic core. First place was hers. After she strared the demonic core away, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to face Bailey Yuyan. Little Black also quickly jumped back on Bailey Hongzhuang's head. Now, it's your turn. Her words were cold and apathetic, voice cloaked with killing intent. Bailey Hongzhuang's pupils shone with ruthless light, she won't miss this chance to kill Bailey Yuyan. Bailey Yuyan never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to deal with the Storm Wolf so fast. Thinking of the sword soaked in blood, she grew anxious and couldn't help but stumble backward. Bailey Hongzhuang, what do you think you're doing? Bailey Yuyan asked, flustered. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled demonically. She raised her black eyebrows, her voice bewitchingly low, you say, what do you think I'm doing? Bailey Yuyan looked at the unfamiliar Bailey Hongzhuang, unconcealed killing intent in her black pupils. She was very clear, Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to kill her. Do you know the consequences of killing me? Bailey Yuyan's face was pale. She knew that her strength wasn't an opponent for Bailey Hongzhuang at all. Haha. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Her face suddenly changed, her eyes turning cold like a glacier. Who do you think you are? If I want to kill someone, do I need to worry about the consequences? Bailey Yuyan was startled, and couldn't help but swallow. Bailey Hongzhuang's words really left her speechless. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang walk step by step, Bailey Yuyan felt like she was stepping on her own heart. Her hand that held the sword couldn't help but tremble. Father won't let you off. Bailey Yuyan continued to persuade Bailey Hongzhuang. If she could leave the hunting grounds safely, she could always take revenge later. It's not him that won't let me off, it's me. That won't let him off. Accept death. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were impatient. At first, she thought that Bailey Yuyan would still pick up her weapon and attack, but she didn't think she actually didn't even have the courage to fight. Crown Prince. Save, traceless kill. Her sword flickered. Bailey Yuyan's body fell to the floor. Before her words, save me, could finish, Bailey Yuyan had already died under Bailey Hongzhuang's sword. Before Bailey Yuyan had poisoned her blind, and even let her live a life worse than death. Later, she destroyed Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance and dreams. Then she no longer cared about her. And now, Bailey Yuyan was just reaping what she had sown. Being kind to an enemy was being cruel to oneself. She won't give Bailey Yuyan another chance to try and kill her. Chapter 155 Bailey Yuyan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang incredulously. Even now, she still couldn't believe that she died under the hands of the same trash she had always disdained. Xianyuan Huan watched, speechless for a very long time. Everything happened too quickly. Before he could react, Bailey Yuyan was already dead. Taking Bailey Yuyan's pouch, Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xianyuan Huan indifferently before turning to the hunting field's exit. She already got the Storm Wolf's demonic core. Now as long as she can leave the hunting grounds alive, first place was hers. As for killing Bailey Yuyan, as long as Xianyuan Huan didn't say anything, she didn't care. Watching her white robe fade into the forest, Xianyuan Huan's heart was in chaos, filled with complicated feelings. From the beginning, they were always blind. Bailey Hongzhuang was never trash. Only Bei Chen truly had eyes, they were just fools. As Bailey Hongzhuang walked to leave the hunting field, everybody turned to stare at her. The fact that Bailey Hongzhuang had been in that fight against the Hell Wolves had shocked many people. Now they didn't only know that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't trash, but that she also was extremely talented in fighting. Originally they had thought the champion was sure to be Xianyuan Huan or Bailey Yuyan, but now they knew Bailey Hongzhuang was also very likely to get first. Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunxi were just looking for the Storm Wolf, even though they knew it was impossible for them to kill it with their own strength. Being unable to hold back their curiosity, they wanted to witness the cultivator who would fight against the Storm Wolf. While they were searching, Xiao Zifan's gaze was suddenly locked on a white figure. In this emerald green forest, that moving white figure was especially eye-catching. Bailey Hongzhuang? Xiao Zifan asked, surprised. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard Xiao Zifan's call, her quiet and exquisite face lit up with an elegant smile, we meet again. Xiao Zifan led an unwilling Zhao Yunxi in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Right now we are searching for the Storm Wolf. Are you preparing to go back? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, there's no need to look anymore, the Storm Wolf is already dead. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Zifen and Zhao Yunxi were both startled. The storm wolf is already dead. Who killed it? The storm wolf wasn't easy to handle. Almost all the cultivators wanted to go and watch the show, but they never thought that it'd end before they even got there. The surrounding cultivators also turned to look at Xiao Zifen and Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was heading back, she should know something they didn't. I killed it. Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. You killed the storm wolf? Zhao Yunxian asked, raising his voice. The fact that Bailey Hongzhuang was able to kill the Hell Wolf King truly exceeded her expectations, but she really didn't expect for Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to kill the storm wolf too. This time, the prize for first place was very rich and definitely should have belonged to Xianyuan Huan. But now, how could Bailey Hongzhuang snatch it away? Zhao Yunxi's voice very loud, and all the surrounding cultivators heard those news. Suddenly, the gazes directed at Bailey Hongzhuang grew fiery. Zhao Yunxi wasn't able to control her voice and accidentally shouted it. The news spread as some cultivators stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, wanting to steal away the demonic core. After all, the emperor said whoever could bring the demonic core back, not whoever could kill it. Chapter 156 Bailey Hongzhuang frowned a little, her view of Zhao Yunxi becoming a little bit worse. Even though she had faith in her own strength, Zhao Yunxi's actions were tantamount to throwing her to the wolves. Xiao Zifen's face turned ugly, immediately speaking, Yunxi didn't do it on purpose, I'll apologize for her. He and Zhao Yunxi knew each other for many years. He knew she was only flustered and had lost her temper in a moment of impulse. But her heart wasn't bad and absolutely didn't intend to cause trouble for Bailey Hongzhuang. I didn't do it on purpose. Zhao Yunxi's tongue got twisted as she talked. Although she did not want to apologize to Bailey Hongzhuang, this time it was truly her mistake. The displeasure in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes slightly faded away. From Zhao Yunxi's attitude, she knew this apology came from her heart. I'll leave first. Bailey Hongzhuang said, unhurried. Although there were quite a few cultivators that heard it, there weren't too many. These people wouldn't dare to do anything. Xiao Zifen nodded continuously, we'll go back with you. The news would spread quickly, so it was only inevitable for some cultivators to harbor bad intentions. After all, the temptation of a spirit beast was just too tempting. Zhao Yunxi didn't speak. Everything was because of her, so it was only right for her to do this. Hearing so, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't refuse, let's go. Xiao Zifen was her friend. If she declined, Xiao Zifen and Zhao Yunxi would definitely think that she took offense, creating tension in their relationship. Sure enough, seeing Bailey Hongzhuang agree, a happy smile spread on Xiao Zifen's face. Fervent gazes stared after the three figures fading away into the forest. If they could defeat Bailey Hongzhuang, first place was theirs. Not only would they get the spirit beast they yearned for in their dreams, they would also bring honor to their ancestors, their reputation spreading far and wide. Feeling the eyes of the crowd, Bailey Hongzhuang's cold eyes swept through the crowd of people, indifferent and ruthless. The cultivators' originally fiery hearts seemed to have been doused by a bucket of cold water. How could they forget how strong Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was to be capable of killing both the Hell Wolf's king and the Storm Wolf? That one night, a girl facing the crowd in a crimson, blood-dyed dress gave everybody a scene they could never forget. Although a spirit beast was good, they also needed to enjoy life. They still remembered Bailey Hongzhuang's cruel, ruthless gaze after she killed the Hell Wolves. If they attacked Bailey Hongzhuang, they were afraid Bailey Hongzhuang would ruthlessly strike them dead. Their pounding hearts stopped. The crowd turned their eyes and walked away. And the crowd turned and continued to walk forward. Although they heard Zhao Yunxi's words, they all wanted to see the Storm Wolf's corpse with their own eyes. Watching the crowd leave, Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze before continuing to walk calmly towards the hunting grounds entrance. Xiao Zifen and Zhao Yunxi looked at each other. After the battle with the Hell Wolves, Bailey Hongzhuang's fame had already spread far and wide. They only needed to look at their motionless hands to know the allure first place held. That strength was something only a few people possessed. I didn't think that the Storm Wolf would actually be killed by Bailey Hongzhuang. I was sure that the Crown Prince would get first. Why don't you just steal it? As long as we beat Bailey Hongzhuang, first place is ours. What a joke. Haven't you seen Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes? If we attack, I'm afraid our end will be even worse than the wolves. Everybody sighed with regret. When everyone heard the emperor declare the rules, they had already secretly decided to attack whoever killed the Storm Wolf for the demonic core. But Xianyuan Huan, the most likely person, was the one everyone had prepared for. Chapter 157. They didn't expect that the person who killed the Storm Wolf wasn't Xianyuan Huan, the person they had prepared for. The former waste has now terrorized every single one of them. On the high platform above the hunting grounds, the emperor and his chancellors ate pastries and drank tea, their eyes falling from time to time on the hunting field's exit. Today was the hunting competition's final day, the day where the results will be announced. The Empress, Jiang Jinying's eyes were filled with eagerness. She was sure Xianyuan Huan's strength was definitely enough to get first place. She truly couldn't wait to see Xianyuan Huan. Su Wanjing was also excited. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's strength surpassed her expectations, she was certain Bailey Yuyan's strength was enough to get second place. Although everybody exchanged greetings warmly, their focus had long been shifted. Suddenly, a noise sounded at the hunting field's exit, attracting everybody's attention. Never mind what achievements they got inside the hunting grounds, even getting out alive was pretty good. But, they all hoped that whoever came out first got first place. 3 figures appeared under the crowd's intense stares. When everybody saw the woman in front, their faces all turned a little strange. The first one to come out was actually Bailey Hongzhuang. Although this result was beyond everybody's expectations, their hearts also couldn't help but be a little curious. The imperial bodyguard said Bailey Hongzhuang killed the Hell Wolf King. After they heard the report, they still needed a very long time to accept it. Their hearts were just too shocked. Why did Chen Wangfei come out first? Did she already kill the Storm Wolf? What a joke. Even if Chen Wangfei isn't trash anymore, she still isn't His Highness S, the Crown Prince or Bailey Yuyan's opponent. In my opinion, I think His Highness, the Crown Prince already killed the Storm Wolf, so Chen Wangfei no longer saw any point in staying, leaving the hunting field first. Hearing his words, everybody nodded one after another. That was probably what had actually happened. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't pay any attention to everyone's conjectures. Xiao Zifen and Zhao Yunxi bowed and greeted the emperor before going to sit in the resting area. The results of the hunting competition are only announced after everybody comes out of the hunting grounds, so for now, they could have a break. Zhao Yunxi sat in a soft, comfortable chair. Feeling her body relaxing, she thought this truly was the best. For the past 3 days, her body and mind were always tense. She didn't even dare to sleep well, afraid of the demonic beasts attacking at night. If they didn't react on time, they would lose their lives. Tasting the bitterness and hardship, she knew that kind of life was too unbearable for her. She never wanted to do it again. Xiao Zifen's heart was a bit tenacious. Although the life in the mountain ranges was definitely tough, he knew one couldn't achieve glory and wealth without having been through trials and tribulations. This was to reach the top. In these 3 days, he made even more progress than he did when he was cultivating at home for 3 months, and even managed to successfully break through to the late stage of Mysterious Earth. Although he didn't get into the top 3 this time, these gains were already a great surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down calmly. There wasn't a single trace of tiredness on her beautiful face, every move rippling with elegance. It almost looked as if she had never gone into the hunting fields and was sitting there all along. Bailey Haoxuan stared at Bailey Honghuang. He had thought Bailey Hongzhuang would die in the hunting fields but didn't expect she would actually have such great luck. Chapter 158 It's a Bluff. Bailey Haoxuan snorted coldly, just wait until sister comes back, I want to see how she'll act then. A ruthless light flickered past Su Wanjing's eyes, even if this trash was lucky enough to come out alive this time, it won't be long until she dies. Bailey Hongzhuang's fight with the Hell Wolves caused everyone to re-evaluate her. She absolutely mustn't let Bailey Hongzhuang steal away Bailey Yuyan's limelight. As soon as the hunting feast was over, she will look for a hitman. No matter what, she needed this trash dead. Very quickly, cultivators began to leave the hunting grounds. Seeing their children come out safely, the various officials couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Regardless of their child's achievements, so long as they were safe and sound, they would be happy. But while almost all the cultivators were out of the hunting grounds, the crowd's two most anticipated cultivators, Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Yuyan, still didn't leave the hunting grounds for a long time. Doubt appeared in everybody's eyes. Why is His Highness, the Crown Prince, still not out yet? Could he still be fighting with the Storm Wolf? Maybe the Storm Wolf is just very hard to deal with. Then taking a lot of time would only be natural. Hearing the court chancellors talk on the stage, all the competition cultivators stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Yuyan were killing the Storm Wolf. The real Storm Wolf was already killed by Bailey Hongzhuang. Time slowly passed by. Finally, everybody saw a bright yellow figure come out of the hunting field. Huaner. Seeing the familiar robe, Jiang Jinying couldn't help but get up and smile. He finally came out. But when Jiang Jinying saw Xianyuan Huan's body, her face couldn't help but turn pale. Because, his bright yellow robes were dyed red with blood. She could tell from Xianyuan Huan's face that his injury was serious. Jiang Jinying immediately went over, at once reaching Xianyuan Huan. Xianyuan Huan was her only son. Now seeing Xianyuan Huan suffer such a serious injury, her heart was stabbed with pain. Huaner, what happened to you? Jiang Jinying's face was filled with concern, about to pull Xianyuan Huan's hand. But when she pulled, Jiang Jinying's face grew even paler. Your hand, Xianyuan Huan's face was bitter. He never thought he'd come out of the hunting competition with such an appearance. Xianyuan Yutian's face also changed. Although he knew that there would always be casualties at the hunting feast and that this year was even more difficult than the previous ones, he had believed that Xianyuan Huan's strength was enough. But now Xianyuan Huan wasn't just hurt, but seriously injured. All the court chancellors were shocked. Xianyuan Huan was at the initial stage of mysterious Ian, but still got seriously injured. From this, you could clearly see just how strong the Storm Wolf truly was. The competing cultivators all couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Xianyuan Huan's hand was already completely mutilated. Even as the crown prince, it still wasn't easy for him to fully heal his injury. He had already prepared for the imperial physicians to assist Xianyuan Huan and bind his wound before quickly treating the other cultivators' injuries as well. Seeing Xianyuan Huan so seriously hurt, Bailey Zhentao grew somewhat heavy. Even now, they still haven't seen Bailey Yuyan come out. A loud gong sounded. The hunting competition was over. The hunting field's entrance closed. It would only open on the day of the next hunting competition. Chapter 159 Watching the exit, Bailey Zhentao's face was gloomy as he stood up. Emperor, my daughter still hasn't come out. Hearing that, everybody looked at Bailey Zhentao curiously. Bailey Yuyan's strength was ranked amongst the best in the group of competing cultivators, so the fact that she still hasn't come out was truly a bit strange. A trace of astonishment flickered past Xianyuan Yutian's eyes, his voice sinking, "There's nobody left in the hunting field." When these words came out, everybody fell in shock. For a moment, Beili Jintao didn't react to Xianyuan Yutian's words. After he was clear, his shock took over his dignified face. "Impossible. Beili Yuyan still hasn't come out of the hunting grounds, but they said that there wasn't anybody left in the field. Doesn't that mean that Beili Yuyan's dead?" When he first heard it, Beili Jintao thought it was absolutely preposterous. With Beili Yuyan's strength, it was simply impossible for her to have died there. Li Qingqian was also somewhat surprised, but his surprise was actually a pleasant one. Now that Beili Yuyan died, the general's household would definitely be much weaker. Only Beili Haoxuan was left, and right now he was just a cripple. Yuyan definitely couldn't have died. Su Wanjing immediately yelled, her face completely firm. Almost nobody believed it. They all knew Beili Yuyan's strength. Unless something like Beili Hongzhuang's situation happened and she got surrounded by hell wolves, it shouldn't have been possible for her to die. But at this moment, Xianyuan Huan slowly opened his mouth. Beili Yuyan really did die. Xianyuan Huan's words were like tossing a stone into a calm lake. As soon as he spoke, everybody stared intensely at him. Since Xianyuan Huan had personally confirmed it, then it probably was true. Beili Yuyan had died. This news swept over everybody's hearts. Even the competing cultivators' faces were filled with shock. "Did you see it with your own eyes?" Beili Haoxuan asked, unresigned. Xianyuan Huan slowly nodded, yes. When Xianyuan Huan's voice fell, Su Wanjing's face instantly turned deathly pale, falling limply to the ground. "No. It's impossible." Su Wanjing trembled, her face full of disbelief. She was waiting for Beili Yuyan to return with glory. How could she have died in the hunting field? Beili Haoxuan looked at Xianyuan Huan in a daze. He was very clear about Xianyuan Huan's identity. There was no reason why he would lie, because there simply wasn't a need to. But his sister's strength was so strong, how could she have died? Beili Jintao's face was gloomy. Although inside his heart was filled with shock, he didn't lose his manners. "Excuse me, Your Highness, Crown Prince, may I ask how Yuyan died?" Beili Jintao asked. "Master, will Xianyuan Huan say what really happened?" Little White asked, worried. Beili Hongzhuang was indifferent. Even if he tells the truth, dead men tell no tales. What evidence does he have? Everybody looked at Xianyuan Huan's mutilated hand and swallowed. The storm wolf was truly too fierce. Xianyuan Huan, even with his strength, got so seriously injured. Beili Yuyan was still somewhat weaker than Xianyuan Huan, so being killed by the storm wolf really wasn't impossible. Thinking up to there, Beili Jintao's face seemed to have suddenly aged 10 years, his high-spirited aura of a general suddenly diminishing. The past 6 months were like a dream for him. He didn't dare to believe that the general's household power has been reduced to this pitiful state in such a short amount of time. Now even Beili Yuyan died. The general's household strength is far weaker now. Currently the general's household only has Beili Haoxuan. It's good that he didn't participate in the hunting competition, otherwise the general's household would truly cease to exist. That's not only it. Chen Wanfei is a newly rising talent, but the general's household didn't know how to cherish the pearl. Everyone's gazes turned to stare at Beili Hongzhuang and Beili Haoxuan's bodies. No matter how they looked, Beili Haoxuan just simply couldn't even be compared to Beili Hongzhuang. After a brief amount of time to rest, Xianyuan Yuqian spoke, "Now we will begin to announce the top 3 competitors in the hunting competition." When Xianyuan Yuqian's voice fell, the atmosphere suddenly changed. The moment suddenly became incredibly tensed. If they could get into the top 3 for the royal family's hunting competition, not only could they receive rich awards, but their names would also be known all over Fengbo country. Xianyuan Yutian's face slowly revealed a smile, for first place, who has the Storm Wolf's core. All the Chancellor's eyes fell on Xianyuan Huan's body. Although his injuries were very serious, no one but him had the strength to win against it. The situation became very strange. On the high platform, the Chancellor stared at Xianyuan Huan. On the ground, everybody else turned to Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing this scene, the Chancellor's faces all changed somewhat. What did this mean? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang had the Storm Wolf's demonic core? Xianyuan Yutian and Zhao Yunxi had doubt on their faces. It seemed this time the hunting competition truly had many variables. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly stood up. Above her slim, fair palm appeared the Storm Wolf's demonic core. The demonic core was azure in the sun, emitting a captivating luster, energy fluctuations faintly permeating in the air. This was the power of a demonic core. All the Storm Wolf's strength was stored in its core. It was incredibly valuable. Xianyuan Yutian and the rest could all recognize the Storm Wolf's core with a glance. Until they saw Bailey Hongzhuang take out the demonic core with their own eyes, didn't believe it. First place was Bailey Hongzhuang's. Bailey Hongzhuang actually got first in the royal hunting competition, truly too incredible. And even His Highness, the Crown Prince, got seriously injured, but Bailey Hongzhuang came out unscathed. Did that mean she was stronger than His Highness? Everyone's eyes changed. Before they hadn't personally seen Bailey Hongzhuang's strength and always had some suspicions about what happened. Now that everything was an ironclad fact, they were completely convinced. The sunlight spilled on a white figure, casting a faint gold shimmer on her body. Her delicate, beautiful face rippled with a clear, faint smile, not proud, not impatient. Even though she was first place with all its glory, her face was still indifferent. Such a bearing was already something the mass majority of cultivators there were unable to have. The winner of the hunting competition was actually the somebody known in the imperial city as Trash. The general's household family truly had no eyes. Did you see how ugly General Bailey's face was? Now his intestines have probably turned blue from regret. That's true. If Bailey Hongzhuang was still one of the general's household's people, the general's household's future would truly be limitless. I really fail to understand how General Bailey's wise. He can't even handle simple family matters. Even though everybody spoke quietly, Bailey Zhentao could still hear every word. In fact, even if he didn't hear them speak, he already knew their way of thinking. He had expelled a perfectly good talent that could have brought glory to their ancestors. Now, everybody saw him as a fool. Thinking a little, Bailey Zhentao felt his face heat up. Today, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance had truly destroyed their face. TL note: face in Chinese is used synonymously with pride, who was known as Trash. A person capable of easily winning the hunting competition was known as Trash. Then what would everyone else competing be known as? Under everybody's eyes, Su Weining was even more ashamed. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's future was boundless. Thinking back, she was truly embarrassed. A court eunuch took the demonic core from Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and brought it to Xianyuan Yutian. When Xianyuan Huan looked at the core in his hands, his lips raised to expose a pleased smile. This really is the Storm Wolf's core. Chen Wanfei truly wasn't simple. Bailey Hongzhuang performed the courtesy, "Your Majesty is too generous." Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's elegant appearance as she performed the courtesy, everybody's hearts were moved. This was a true genius. After confirming Bailey Hongzhuang was the winner, the other cultivators took out the demonic cores they had collected in the hunting grounds. Second and third place was determined by the number of demonic cores you held. Xianyuan Huan was fully deserving of second place, and Xiao Zifan was third. At first Xiao Zifan was surprised when he saw the results, but then soon understood. Many of the demonic cores were from when he helped Bailey Hongzhuang face off against the crowd of hell wolves. Demonic beasts weren't very common, so it'd usually take a long time to find one. Only when he was surrounded by a flock, was he able to get so many, so quickly. He had a lot of cores, but the amount Bailey Hongzhuang held was probably incomparable to anyone else's here. Even Xianyuan Huan wouldn't have enough. After crowning the top 3, Xianyuan Yuqian gave the awards on the spot. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the demonic beast egg in her hands, a small smile slowly appearing on her face. Her spirit beast was just inside the eggshell. Demonic beast eggs weren't unhatched demonic beasts, but were actually young demonic beasts sealed with a mysterious technique. Usually demonic beasts were unwilling to be spirit beasts, so they would be sealed when they're young and would only come out of the shell after they've formed a contract with somebody. Xianyuan Huan got the bone cleaning pill and Xiao Zifan received his lotus cloud fungoid. Everybody stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two enviously. From today on, their names would be known all over the country. In the crowd, just as the hunting feast's curtain began to close, 2 figures slowly made their way to the high platform. Everybody looked at 2 men curiously. With their experience, they naturally knew the 2's identities weren't simple. We pay respects to the emperor. Xianyuan Yuqian smiled when he saw the 2 men, Teacher Lu, Teacher Fu, please get up. Chapter 162 These 2 are the Azure Water School's recruiting teachers. Xianyuan Huan introduced the 2 to everyone. Hearing the name, Azure Water School, everyone's faces changed. The young cultivator's enthusiasm grew even more, gazing excitedly at the landing teacher Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo Azure Water School, situated between Fengbo Country and Clear Flame Country's borders. They were a school specialized for producing talented cultivators. Every young cultivator dreamed of one day entering this place. Becoming a student of Azure Water School was already a great honor in itself. Nowadays, if a person were to say they were from Azure Water School, everybody would turn to look at them with respect and admiration. That place was full of talents and abundant resources. If a cultivator could enter, their cultivating speed would be far faster than anything they could achieve at home. The only thing was, Azure Water School's entry requirements were very strict. Each year, only a few cultivators were able to enter. Every entry day, Azure Water School would send a few teachers to recruit new talents. If the teacher thought you had talent, they would ask you to go to the Azure Water School when the moment comes to participate in the examination. You had one sole chance to participate in the exam and that was it. Only after passing the it, would your ability be enough to be allowed entry into Azure Water School. Apart from this, there was still another exception. Very rarely, Azure Water School had a kind of invitation letter. If a teacher believed firmly in a cultivator, they would bestow them an invitation letter. When the time came, the cultivator didn't need to take the exam and could directly enter Azure Water School. A student capable of earning such a letter undoubtedly had talent. From a young age, their strength should have always been the strongest among their peers. The youthful faces were all a bit nervous. The recruiting teachers appeared so suddenly. It was quite possible for them to have found a cultivator they liked, maybe it was them. Bailey Hongzhuang also stared when Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo appeared. According to Xianyuan Yuqian's and the others' earlier reactions, she knew the one little black and little white had sensed back then weren't them. That means the ones who were watching earlier must have been Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo. In that case, the Hell Wolves' attack were also because of them. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo sensed Bailey Hongzhuang's stare, their faces exposing a friendly smile. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped watching them, her face completely indifferent. Regarding the 2 men who placed her in danger, she had no desire to smile back at them. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo didn't mind, turning to speak, "Emperor, we found 2 pretty good seedlings in the hunting competition." Hearing them, Xianyuan Yuqian smiled. His gaze couldn't help but fall on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Bailey Hongzhuang had the best performance in this year's hunting competition. It was simply incomparable to anyone else's. Earlier he had wanted to take the chance to send Huaner to study at Azure Water School since he believed that Huaner's strength was definitely enough to shine brightly in the hunting competition. But he never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was even stronger. The important seedling Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo found was most likely Bailey Hongzhuang. Everybody suddenly understood. It was no wonder that the rewards were so rich, because Azure Water School was also attending. The richer the award, the higher the competitor's moral will be. A higher moral meant that they would show a better performance, thereby possibly attracting the Azure Water School's teachers' attention. Chapter 163, I wonder which two cultivators the teachers have chosen. Although he already knew the answer, Xianyuan Yuqian still asked. The Crown Prince, Xianyuan Huan, that youngster there, and that girl are all quite nice. Lu Huayan smiled. Xiao Zifan was astonished when he saw Lu Huayan's finger point at him. He couldn't believe it. Me? Me? Yes, you. Lu Huayan was certain. Whether it was strength or talent, Xianyuan Huan was very good. Although his persistence and determination were a little off, once he entered the Azure Water School, it would no longer be a problem. That was because Azure Water School's cultivation was cruel. It was like a greenhouse, where they would only treasure the flowers and throw out the weeds. Xiao Zifan's strength was only average, but he was very bright, which was something they appreciated very much. Other than Xiao Zifan, another woman called Jiang Han was also filled with excitement. She had never thought that she'd be selected. Gazes of admiration and envy stared at Xiao Zifan and Jiang Han. Being able to attract the Azure Water School teachers' attention was truly enviable. I don't know if you three would be interested in partaking in our Azure Water School's exam. Although Fu Hongbo was asking, he wasn't worried. This was a chance that no cultivator would refuse. Just as expected, Xianyuan Huan and the other two all nodded their heads. This was a huge opportunity for them. So long as they tried hard in the examination, their cultivation would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. But everybody was staring at Bailey Hongzhuang doubtfully. This year, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was clearly the best, so why didn't they mention Bailey Hongzhuang's name? Everyone's face was different, all kinds of conjectures popping into their heads. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang used a scheme to get to first place, so the two teachers didn't care about her? Su Wanjing's numb eyes suddenly had a ray of light. She immediately thought Bailey Hongzhuang must have used a shameful method. However, the next moment, the two teachers did something that made everyone stare with wide eyes. They could only see Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo walk slowly to Bailey Hongzhuang. Shockingly, a shining violet invitation letter appeared in their hands. Miss Bailey, are you interested in joining our Azure Water School? Fu Hongbo asked smilingly. Seeing the purple invite, everybody sucked in a cold breath. An invitation letter. It's actually an Azure Water School invitation letter. Bailey Hongzhuang actually got the Azure Water School's invitation letter. The letter was something many cultivators dreamed of, but many more didn't even dare to hope for it. The two teachers' question was as different as black and white. Even Xianyuan Huan, the Crown Prince, only got the chance to participate in the exam, but Bailey Hongzhuang was allowed to directly enter Azure Water School. There was no need for an exam. The two tutors already firmly believed in her talent. At this moment, everyone was clear. It wasn't that the two teachers didn't care about Bailey Hongzhuang, but that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually the most important part. Too awesome, after everyone hears, who knows how many people will be stunned. Xiao Zifan was briefly surprised, but soon his face was filled with pure joy. Bailey Hongzhuang really isn't simple, to actually be able to get the two teachers' approval. Zhao Yunqi revealed a bitter smile. She wasn't even able to take part in Azure Water School's exam. If Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan taking out the invitation letter was shocking, Bailey Hongzhuang's next words were even more unbelievable. Chapter 164, Not Interested. Bailey Hongzhuang said lightly. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongbo were startled. Before, it had always been others begging them to bestow an invitation. This was the first time they were rejected. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang's words came out, the crowd fell silent. Everyone's mouths had fallen open. This was a rare chance. Bailey Hongzhuang actually refused. You don't want to join Azure Water School? Lu Huaiyan asked doubtfully, why? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent, no reason. Do you hate Azure Water School? Fu Hongbo was puzzled. The glory of Azure Water School was something almost no cultivator would refuse. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head a little. I don't care about the school. I just hate you too. She hated the teachers. Everybody's mouths twitched. They truly didn't know what to say. The reason why Bailey Hongzhuang refused the invitation to Azure Sky School was actually because of the two recruitment teachers. What did the two teachers do to provoke you? Hate us. Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan looked at each other. Bailey Hongzhuang's answer had baffled them. Before this, we've never even met. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brow and smiled gently, are you sure? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan's hearts thumped loudly. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang actually did see them that day? How was it like, throwing me into trouble and then sitting back to watch the show? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips were curved, a voice cold with a trace of sarcasm. Now, Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan were sure. Bailey Hongzhuang had really found them out that day. Not only that, but she even knew that they were the ones who had set up the Hell Wolves after her. After a brief period of shock, Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan were now aware that Bailey Hongzhuang was even more extraordinary than they had previously thought. If it was another cultivator, there was no chance that they'd be able to figure it out. Even though they provoked the Hell Wolves, they left no clues behind. It should have been impossible for somebody to find them. Yet Bailey Hongzhuang not only found them, but even knew it was all connected. This revelation couldn't help but make them wonder. Was it them watching the show from the sidelines, or Bailey Hongzhuang? Was she really just a 15-year-old young girl? Her meticulous mind was simply monstrous. But they liked it. As Azure Water School's teachers, what kind of genius haven't they seen? They weren't interested in the average geniuses which only followed everyone else. What truly interested them were monsters like Bailey Hongzhuang. Right, they wanted monsters. The reason why geniuses were known as geniuses, were because they possessed a monstrous side. Bailey Hongzhuang was only at the initial stage of Mysterious Ian, but was actually able to discover them all while battling the Hell Wolves. Just how monstrous was her spirit force? Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang was worth even more than they had thought. No matter what, they needed to convince her to enroll in Azure Water School. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Xianyuan Yutian on the platform above her. Emperor, may I ask if the hunting feast is over? Xianyuan Yutian nodded, yes. Hearing his words, Bailey Hongzhuang performed the courtesy, in that case, I will retire first. She had always led her life alone. Even heaven couldn't interfere, how could she let other people? Although he knew Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan's actions had reasons behind them, she had never wanted to go through the test. It was something they had completely forced upon her. She didn't care about Azure Sky School. Chapter 165. Right after she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to leave the rest area. Everyone was in a daze as they watched her leave. Wasn't this just too rude? Bailey Hongzhuang had directly rejected the two teachers' invitation without another word. Even her words sounded as if she was too lazy to deal with the two. Her identity seemed to change in front of everybody's eyes. Xianyuan Yutian's face was also a bit awkward. The royal hunting competition had already ended, so it wasn't exactly wrong for Bailey Hongzhuang to leave. But thinking reasonably, wasn't that just a terrible time to leave? Teacher Lu, Teacher Fu. Xianyuan Yutian slowly started to talk. With his identity as the country's monarch, he usually didn't need to be worried about other people's displeasure. But Azure Water School's identity was special. Its position was very deep-rooted, and its influence was enormous. Many powerful experts came from the school. Its only goal was to grow the cultivator's strength and never asked anything in return. However, every single cultivator was grateful to Azure Water School as their alma mater. If their alma mater were to meet with a mishap, they wouldn't just stand by and let it die. Some of the students who had turned into famous cultivators assisted Azure Water School and donated resources to them to return the favor. So even though Azure Water School seemed to just be an ordinary school, its identity was actually very complicated. The slightest move would affect everyone else. Even Xianyuan Yutian didn't want to offend them. After all, many of Fengbo country's cultivators were also studying there. What's more, Xianyuan Huan was also preparing to cultivate in Azure Water School. Everybody thought that Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan would get angry after Bailey Hongzhuang's response, but the two's reactions were completely different from their expectations. They could only see them continuing to smile at Xianyuan Yutian. Congratulations, Emperor. It seems like there are many good seedlings in the younger generation. We have some business to do, so we'll take our leave first. Watching the two's reactions, Xianyuan Yutian knew that the two weren't angry at Bailey Hongzhuang, but were actually even more interested in her. He nodded his head. Since you two have something you need to do, I shall not detain you. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongbo nodded, at once leaving in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction. Damn, have I seen wrongly? Even after Bailey Hongzhuang refused to join Azure Water School, they are still rushing to ask her. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's strength isn't bad, the two teachers shouldn't need to chase so desperately, right? In the end, what happened? I don't understand anything. Everybody looked at each other. Bailey Hongzhuang's response was strange, and the two teachers' reaction was even stranger. Could it be that she was straight up trying to get rid of them instead of doing business? Was it that the more Bailey Hongzhuang refused, the more Azure Water School wanted to invite her? Watching the two teachers hurriedly leave as if they were afraid of convincing Bailey Hongzhuang a second late, everybody was left speechless. There was no natural order of things. They had to stake their lives just to hope for a chance to enter Azure Water School, and still needed the teachers to give a nod of approval. But Bailey Hongzhuang was just simply an arrogant idler, and yet other people come running to her. The gap between them and her was just too big. Although all the chancellors seemed to be calm and collect, in their hearts, they were actually extremely shocked. This Bailey Hongzhuang may be able to even go against the heavens, With that the royal family's hunting competition was over. Although Li Qingqian was very unhappy with Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, after seeing Bailey Zhentao's thick-skinned face turn dark, his heart became very delighted. Edited by Alex. Chapter 166. Right after she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to leave the rest area. Everyone was in a daze as they watched her leave. Wasn't this just too rude? Bailey Hongzhuang had directly rejected the two teachers' invitation without another word. Even her words sounded as if she was too lazy to deal with the two. Her identity seemed to change in front of everybody's eyes. Xianyuan Yutian's face was also a bit awkward. The royal hunting competition had already ended, so it wasn't exactly wrong for Bailey Hongzhuang to leave. But thinking reasonably, wasn't that just a terrible time to leave? Teacher Lu, Teacher Fu. Xianyuan Yutian slowly started to talk. With his identity as the country's monarch, he usually didn't need to be worried about other people's displeasure. But Azure Water School's identity was special. Its position was very deep-rooted, and its influence was enormous. Many powerful experts came from the school. Its only goal was to grow the cultivator's strength and never asked anything in return. However, every single cultivator was grateful to Azure Water School as their alma mater. If their alma mater were to meet with a mishap, they wouldn't just stand by and let it die. Some of the students who had turned into famous cultivators assisted Azure Water School and donated resources to them to return the favor. So even though Azure Water School seemed to just be an ordinary school, its identity was actually very complicated. The slightest move would affect everyone else. Even Xianyuan Yutian didn't want to offend them. After all, many of Fengbo country's cultivators were also studying there. What's more, Xianyuan Huan was also preparing to cultivate in Azure Water School. Everybody thought that Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan would get angry after Bailey Hongzhuang's response, but the two's reactions were completely different from their expectations. They could only see them continuing to smile at Xianyuan Yutian. Congratulations, Emperor. It seems like there are many good seedlings in the younger generation. We have some business to do, so we'll take our leave first. Watching the two's reactions, Xianyuan Yutian knew that the two weren't angry at Bailey Hongzhuang, but were actually even more interested in her. He nodded his head. Since you two have something you need to do, I shall not detain you. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongbo nodded, at once leaving in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction. Damn, have I seen wrongly? Even after Bailey Hongzhuang refused to join Azure Water School, they are still rushing to ask her. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's strength isn't bad, the two teachers shouldn't need to chase so desperately, right? In the end, what happened? I don't understand anything. Everybody looked at each other. Bailey Hongzhuang's response was strange, and the two teachers' reaction was even stranger. Could it be that she was straight up trying to get rid of them instead of doing business? Was it that the more Bailey Hongzhuang refused, the more Azure Water School wanted to invite her? Watching the two teachers hurriedly leave as if they were afraid of convincing Bailey Hongzhuang a second late, everybody was left speechless. There was no natural order of things. They had to stake their lives just to hope for a chance to enter Azure Water School, and still needed the teachers to give a nod of approval. But Bailey Hongzhuang was just simply an arrogant idler, and yet other people come running to her. The gap between them and her was just too big. Although all the chancellors seemed to be calm and collect, in their hearts, they were actually extremely shocked. This Bailey Hongzhuang may be able to even go against the heavens, With that the royal family's hunting competition was over. Although Li Qingqian was very unhappy with Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, after seeing Bailey Zhentao's thick-skinned face turn dark, his heart became very delighted. Chapter 167. I don't think she refused the invitation because of Azure Water School, but because of us making the flock of hell wolves attack her. It's true that we didn't handle it very well. Fu Hongbo's face was calm. That girl isn't a petty person, and probably won't bother about that. From what they see of Bailey Hongzhuang's behavior towards Zhao Yunxi, if she was truly a petty-minded person, she wouldn't have let Zhao Yunxi off. Lu Huaiyan nodded slightly. This was also one of the points he admired about Bailey Hongzhuang. News about Bailey Hongzhuang receiving first place for the royal family's hunting competition swept through the imperial city like wind. The people who heard this news was completely stunned. This was a true dark horse who wins the competition. Before, some people had thought first place would be Xianyuan Huan, and other people thought that it had belonged to Bailey Yuyan. But nobody had ever thought Bailey Hongzhuang would get first. Although it was already known that the trash had gotten prettier, this time Bailey Hongzhuang had used her own strength to show everybody, she wasn't trash. In the royal family's hunting competition, Bailey Hongzhuang completely washed off the title of trash. But before everybody could recover from their shock, another piece of news came, shocking everyone until they couldn't even open their mouths. Azure Water School personally issued an invitation letter, but Bailey Hongzhuang unexpectedly rejected it. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang declined, the two recruiting teachers actually didn't get the least bit angry. Instead, they went and continued to try and persuade Bailey Hongzhuang. What was called domineering? This was called domineering. All the cultivators were racking their brains for a chance to enter Azure Water School, but Bailey Hongzhuang was able to think over whether she wanted to go or not. With this, the gaps completely appeared. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang had a headache. All over the city, everybody was talking about Bailey Hongzhuang. The Imperial City's #1 beauty, Fengbo Country's #1 physician, and Azure Water School's personally invited genius. The three titles condensed into a halo around one person. Her power was stunning. Hearing everyone talk, Li Huaiyan and Fu Hongbo gained a better understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang. The more they heard, the more they knew Bailey Hongzhuang truly wasn't simple. A 15-year-old girl who was always called trash her whole life, suddenly brilliantly blossomed, but was still able to stay calm and collected. Just this temperament alone was enough to make one feel fearful. Although they didn't know why Bailey Hongzhuang was always silently enduring it for so long, being capable of enduring 15 years of unwarranted abuse then suddenly gaining such power and accomplishments, one could only imagine how tough her heart was. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongbo looked at each other. They had still underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. This Bailey Hongzhuang's future isn't simple. Fu Hongbo's face revealed deep emotion. Now he could finally understand how Bailey Hongzhuang was able to stay so calm and collected even while being trapped by a flock of hell wolves. Because, after living 15 years cursed and spat on, disdained despite being able to cultivate, her heart was unshakable. The strong ought to have their requirements, and she posses them all. Lu Huaiyan nodded slightly. We found an amazing girl. The two looked at each other, smiling. They were even more intent on recruiting Bailey Hongzhuang. From the steward's words, Bailey Hongzhuang learned a little bit about Azure Water School. Before she was always holed up in the general's household. She didn't even know the basics of cultivation, never mind Azure Water School. Azure Water School had already stood for more than a millennium. Its reputation was very good, and the majority of the cultivators capable of entering all saw a large growth in their strength. That was also why so many cultivators were all racking their heads over how they could join Azure Water School. In this case, she was only unhappy that the other side wanted to test her. But she knew that to select the best, it was still quite normal. This was a world that followed the laws of the jungle. The rules were always written by the strong, and the weak could only watch. But watching the two apologize so seriously, a trace of warmth couldn't help but appear in her heart. An elegant smile bloomed on Bailey Hongzhuang's blossom-like lips. I would also like to apologize for my earlier behavior. Since Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongbo already took a step back, she naturally couldn't continue to keep a grudge. Their manners even made her admire them a little. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Fu Hongbo and Lu Huaiyan immediately sat back in their original positions and continued to sample the refreshments. Girl, your home's refreshments really aren't bad. Seeing the two's attitudes change so fast and even immediately changing the topic, Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched. It looked like it was impossible for these two guys to stay serious. A faint smile slowly emerged in her black eyes. She had already begun to get used to Fu Hongbo's personality. Since you think it's pretty good, I'll get the kitchen to prepare some more for you to take back. Bailey Hongzhuang said, indifferent. Huh, this girl truly knows how to talk. Fu Hongbo laughed brightly. In 1 month, Azure Water School will send an announcement. You mustn't arrive late. Lu Huaiyan urged. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head slightly. I'll arrive on time. Since it's like this, we have to go now. You must work hard, we'll be waiting for you at Azure Water School. Fu Hongbo smiled. Okay. Right after Bailey Hongzhuang sent off the two teachers, she spotted Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunxi standing in front of the palace gates. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang come out, Xiao Zifan waved, "Bailey Hongzhuang." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. She actually didn't expect for Xiao Zifan to come here himself. The royal hunting competition just finished, so everybody should be recuperating in their homes. "You guys are looking for me?" Xiao Zifan nodded his head. "Today Tianxiang Market is having an auction. I heard that there'll be lots of treasures inside, so Yunxi and I just happened to stop by and wanted to tell you. Are you interested?" Auction. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes swam, a bright smile making its way onto her lips. "I would also like to watch." For cultivators in Xinxua continent, in addition to shops, there were another way for them to find what they wanted: auctions. Auctions were all about cultivators. The items' value were often higher than the normal shop's items, but it was also far more expensive. Bailey Hongzhuang was also very interested in the competition. Perhaps, she could find some of the stuff she needed there. Right now, the thing she lacked most was a good weapon. Ordinary sword simply wouldn't do, that could clearly be seen with how the Hell Wolf King had snapped it with a single bite. The auction starts at 3:00. We'll meet directly in Tianxiang Market. Xiao Zifan smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Now it was too early and the auction wouldn't begin for quite a while. First, she should go take a look at the beast egg. After learning about Azure Water School last night, she had actually completely forgotten about the beast egg. Thinking of it now, she too wanted to know what kind of spirit beast it was. Returning inside, Bailey Hongzhuang took out the demonic beast egg. It was only 20 centimeters tall, its whole body completely white. Complicated, abstruse patterns appeared around it. These were the seals binding its strength. Bailey Hongzhuang also knew a bit about spirit beasts, but seeing this demonic beast seal, she couldn't help but frown. After 1,000 years, the seal was very different from what she had remembered. "Master, I don't this seal is ordinary Little Black spoke up. Little White nodded. "I think that the demonic beast sealed inside is even more unordinary. I can sense its energy fluctuations." Little Black and Little White were also a kind of spirit beast, but they themselves didn't know what beasts they were. Unlike humanity, demonic beasts were hierarchical. If a low-level demonic beast encountered a high-level one, it would instinctively acknowledge allegiance. Although Little Black and Little White didn't know what kind of demonic beasts they were, they clearly weren't weak. Since it could even make Little White say it wasn't simple, it was clear that the demonic beast inside was absolutely extraordinary. Chapter 170, The royal family being able to put an ordinary spirit beast as the prize was already very costly, but they could actually still bear to give a powerful one. Her clear eyes were filled with surprise. Originally, she didn't have much hope with the spirit beast egg. After all, even if Feng Bo country somehow managed to get a powerful spirit beast, there was no way that they'd give it to her. But now, it looked very different from what she'd expected. I don't think that the royal family knew how special this spirit beast egg was. This egg has a power that blocks the spirit beast's power fluctuations. Only we can sense them. Little White spoke up. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved, so basically, I got a big bargain. Although she still didn't know what kind of beast was inside, at the very least, Bailey Hongzhuang knew it definitely wasn't weak. Different spirit beasts had different strengths. Their potentials were different. If the spirit beast's rank was low, then even if the owner knew how to nurture it properly, its achievements would still be limited. That was because they didn't have very much potential. But if the spirit beast's rank was high, it'd have lots of room to grow, giving far more help to its master. Bailey Hongzhuang no longer hesitated. Directly taking a knife to cut her finger, she allowed a small drop of blood to drip on the spirit beast's shell. With the drop of blood, the patterns on the shell bloomed with golden light, shining in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. It was lucky that it was daytime. If it was night, the brilliant flashes of light would have long attracted other cultivators. The fine drop of blood quickly flowed over the patterns and continued to glide. Wherever it went, the seals dissipated. When the drop of blood finally stopped moving, all the seals had vanished. Blood oozed through the shell, blending into the space between the spirit beast's eyebrows. Ka-cha! Ka-cha! Cracking sounds came from the eggshell. Bailey Hongzhuang and the two fluff balls curiously peered inside the shell. They were all very curious about the spirit beast inside. The first thing that appeared was a furry, white paw. The tiny paw was extremely cute. Then, the eggshell was shattered and similarly furry head appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Master! A childish voice shouted at Bailey Hongzhuang, filled with dependence and curiosity. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched as she looked at the thing that could only be described as a house pet in front of her. This is what you guys call the strong and powerful spirit beast. In front of her, there was only a white, furry body curiously looking around. As far as the eye could see, it was no different from a pet dog. Just a single glance was capable of snatching a woman's heart. But still, this was completely different from Bailey Hongzhuang's imagination. She had thought that a high-ranked spirit beast would have a mighty and domineering appearance, but in front of her was only a small, white dog. If everyone heard this, she was afraid that they'd die from laughing. Little Black and Little White's faces were also stunned as they looked at the white creature. This figure. It was also different from their imaginations. Ah! Little White finally moved closer in front of the white creature, carefully sizing up the spirit beast's appearance. It didn't know any demonic beasts that looked like this. Ah! Little Black pointed at its forehead. Master, look! King is written on its forehead. T/N, the Chinese character for king is Wang, so is written on its forehead, not the actual English letters / Chinese pinyin. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang grabbed the spirit beast and looked at its forehead. Sure enough, a character was printed on there. Seeing the king character and then looking at the little white dog, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but find it very funny. What king? Puppy King? Bailey Hongzhuang was speechless. Pfft. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang call it a puppy king, Little Black and Little White couldn't help but laugh. This was just too funny. Master, maybe it's because this spirit beast is only a newborn so the appearance was a little off. Maybe it's actually a tiger. Ah! Little White said. Bailey Hongzhuang examined the spirit beast, traces of doubt in her eyes. I hope so. It was hard to really understand anything about a demonic beast. The only thing you could think of was how utterly adorable it was. There was a chance that it would become an amazing spirit beast later. After all, both Little Black and Little White believed that its rank wasn't low. Do you guys know what kind of spirit beast this is? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She saw many demonic beasts, but they were practically all adult beasts. She truly didn't know much about baby demonic beasts. Little Black and Little White looked at each other before shaking their heads. We don't know. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the spirit beast and asked, what kind of spirit beast are you? Ordinary spirit beasts weren't able to open their mouths to talk unless they were strong enough to change into their humanoid forms. However, if the spirit beast and master were very close, they could form a split link to communicate with spirit force. That way, they were at least able to have a tacit understanding of each other. The spirit beast shook its head, slowly speaking, don't know. Hearing its answer, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't surprised. It was also very pitiful, being sealed immediately after birth. It didn't even know what kind of demonic beast it was. But that wasn't a problem. As long as it grew up, she would naturally know what it was. Later on, we'll all be one family. Bailey Hongzhuang petted the beast, smiling. Master, give this little guy a name. Little Black said laughingly. Bailey Hongzhuang thought deeply before finally speaking, we'll call you Baisher. T/N Baishur equals white lion. She believed that from the king character on its head, it shouldn't be weak. So, its name shouldn't be any weaker than its rank. After Bailey Hongzhuang chose the name Baishur, she found Little Black and Little White staring at her indignantly. Facing the two fluffballs' eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. Why are you guys looking at me like that? Master, why weren't you this good when you were giving us names? Little Black's eyes were filled with resentment. Such a terrible name was the biggest stain of its life. One look and you know we aren't truly loved. Just how many dogs have such a great name? Little White said angrily. In the primordial chaos ring, they had originally wished for their names to be resounded all over China. But thinking of their current names, they couldn't help but shed bitter tears. Little White, this name just sounded too weak. How could a world-famous demonic beast have such a name? It truly couldn't face it. Hearing Little Black and Little White's grievances, Bailey Honghoung's mouth twitched. These two guys were too serious, the names were only code names. But she clearly knew that the two fluffballs wouldn't listen to her. That's not it necessarily true. Right now, I'll give you two a super domineering combination name. Bailey Hongzhuang said smilingly. What new name? Little White and Little Black asked, eyes wide. Black and White Fiends. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. How is it? Isn't it very domineering? Little Black and Little White paused, before trying to act cool by rolling their eyes. It's a so-so. But their lips couldn't help but curve and reveal their true thoughts. That name really was powerful. Chapter 172 Bailey Hongzhuang instructed the servants to prepare food for Baishur. Spirit beasts always needed to eat lots of food, and after being sealed away so long without eating, Baishur was naturally very hungry. Seeing the food, Baishur excitedly rubbed across Bailey Hongzhuang's leg before rushing headforth into the food. But when everyone saw how much food Baishur was eating, their eyes were all filled with astonishment. Oh no, there's another glutton. Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched. Little Black and Little White were already able to eat, but she never expected that Baishur could eat even more than those two. Just buying cultivation resources for herself was already like a bottomless pit. Now that she's also raising 3 prodigal songs, she really doesn't have enough money. Thinking of it, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but take out the demonic cores. These demonic cores are also pretty useful. Since there's an auction in the afternoon, it's better to take out a few pills to participate. While Bailey Honghoung was thinking about what pills to bring for the auction, Baishur's twinkling eyes had already locked onto the demonic core in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. Master, want. Baishur left its food to walk towards Bailey Hongzhuang, its voice like milk. Hearing its words, Bailey Hongzhuang raised the tip of her brow. You want the demonic core? Baishur nodded its head. Want. Bailey Honghoung's face was doubtful. Although she didn't know what Baishur wanted to do with the demonic core, since it wants, it could have it. As she placed the demonic core in front of Baishur, the two fluffballs stared confusedly. This guy shouldn't be able to absorb it right away, should it? Little White asked questioningly. The demonic core was the same as a demonic beast's cultivational essence. After reaching a certain level of strength, a demonic beast could directly absorb a demonic core to increase their own strength. However, it wasn't easy. A demonic beast's energy was very violent. Only a very powerful demonic beast could easily absorb it. The demonic core Bailey Honghoung got this time wasn't weak at all. Although Little Black and Little White could still absorb it, Baishur was still young and its body wasn't strong enough. I don't know, let's just look what happens. Little Black answered, even if Baishur could absorb it, it can't absorb a lot. Since Baishur took the initiative to ask for it, it shouldn't be a problem. After Baishur saw the core, its eyes lit up with even more excitement. It charged at the core. Ka-cha! A crisp sound echoed in the air. The demonic core was cracked. Baisha reached out with its soft, red tongue and licked the liquid out of the core, absorbing everything into its body. Soon after, it also chewed on the shell before swallowing it completely. After it was finished eating, Baisha licked its mouth before continuing to eat the rest of its food. Damn, no way. Little Black was stunned. What is this guy made of? How could it eat a whole demonic core? This shouldn't be right. Little White was completely bewildered. This was something they truly hadn't expected to see. Her ink-black eyes were like jade as they twinkled with light. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at its furry body, the corners of her mouth bursting forth with a bright and beautiful smile. Just watching Baisha's actions, she already knew that the little guy wasn't simple. The demonic core Baisha ate just now was one of the hell wolves. If a demonic beast's innate strength wasn't strong enough, they wouldn't be able to absorb the energy. How big was Baisha's potential? It was capable of eating the entire demonic core safely, which proved that its innate power was very strong. She believed that this time, she had truly picked up a treasure. Baisha wasn't an ordinary spirit beast at all. Chapter 173. Thinking up to here, Bailey Hongzhuang grew a bit happy. By just a little bit, it seemed that supporting this prodigal son was worth it. Time passed by in an instant and it was finally time for the auction. Bailey Hongzhuang packed her things and left for Tianxiang Trading Commerce. The passerbys' faces all turned excited when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang appear. Right now, the most famous person in all of Feng Bo country was Chen Wangfei. Before, the three most popular geniuses were Xian Yuan Huan, Bailey Yuyan, and Li Yuyue, so everybody thought that whether if it was Bailey Yuyan or Li Yuyue, they'd all be a good match for Xian Yuan Huan. But, the trash they had always disdained turned out to be the most shocking genius of them all. She proved to everybody with facts, that this was true talent. Bailey Hongzhuang was the idol of many young cultivators. Bailey Hongzhuang had suffered from all kinds of humiliation, but now finally her bitterness had finished and sweetness begins. Since Bailey Hongzhuang could do it, how couldn't they? Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Zifan immediately smiled and walked towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, you came. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. You guys came here first. We had only just arrived. Xiao Zifan smiled brightly. Next month, I'll be taking Azure Water School's assessment, so my father allowed me to go to the auction to see if there's anything that suits me. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly looked around, finding that many of the people here were rather young. The items that appeared in an auction was far better than the ones in the store. If they could find something that was suitable for them, that would definitely be best. At the same time, everybody else was also staring at Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, it was impossible not to pay Bailey Hongzhuang any attention. Today, Bailey Hongzhuang was wearing a simple white dress, clearly displaying her temperament. Her delicately flawless face seemed perfect from every angle. Just by standing there, she was already a memorable sight. Look, Bailey Hongzhuang came. I wonder if Bailey Hongzhuang ended up choosing whether to go to Azure Water School or not. Refusing such a good opportunity, her courage really isn't small. If I needed to comment, I'd have to say that Chen Wangye really does have the best taste in the entire imperial city, actually being able to bring home and marry such a good woman. If I had known earlier, I definitely would have long gone to the general's household and asked her hand in marriage. Everybody nodded along to his words. Bailey Hongzhuang's sudden rise was the only proof that the general's household had no eyes, losing the pearl. The royal family was the same, but nobody dared to say it aloud. This time, His Highness, the Crown Prince had truly suffered a loss. A man smiled. Today, I heard that something happened to Li Yuyue's face. Hearing those words come out, everyone curiously turned to look at him. What happened? Zhao Yunxi giggled as she turned to face Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Zifen. I heard that Li Yue's face somehow got covered in freckles. Now, she could probably change her name to be called Li Matzi. Li Matzi. Li is the surname, Matzi means pockmark. Xiao Zifen was startled. That can't be. How could her face suddenly have freckles on it with no cause or reason? Before, she was always running rampant, acting arrogantly like a peacock. Now she doesn't even dare to leave her room and reveal her face. It serves her right. I've always hated her attitude. Now I doubt that the crown prince will marry a woman covered in pockmarks. Zhao Yunxi laughed, pleased. She truly hated Li Yue's high and mighty attitude, swaggering around the city. Bailey Hongzhuang had a faint smile on her face and didn't speak. This is already His Highness's second engagement. If this one is cancelled as well, then, Xiao Zifen looked distracted. If this got out to the public, the crown prince would be reduced to a joke. If the engagement was cancelled again and they needed to find another woman to become the crown princess, then His Highness's marriages would be viewed as a funny tale for all of Feng Bo country to hear. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang, secretly sighing with regret. His Highness truly had no eyes. Not long after, Xianyuan Huan arrived at Tianxiang Trading Commerce. But when he entered the hall, Xianyuan Huan felt as if everyone was looking at him strangely. His normally proud and arrogant face was currently a little helpless. First, he wasn't able to get first in the hunting competition. Now, there was a problem with his fiancée. Before he came, he had overheard his parents discussing whether or not to once again cancel the engagement, making him feel very powerless. He really had no idea why he had such bad luck. Nothing was going in his favor. The originally loud crowd suddenly became quiet. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the auction hall. The bright lounge was enough to house hundreds of people with room to spare, arranged to display a quiet yet refined elegance. A single look could tell that the decor, although valuable, wasn't the least bit overwhelming. That was where the auction would be held. Wait a bit for me, I'm going to the treasure room. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly spoke. Xiao Zifen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, surprised. You're going to sell something? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and nodded, right. Although you can bring items to sell in the auction before it starts, selling it now, it would only be able to make the next auction. You can't catch the current one. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to look around. Bailey Hongzhuang still smiled. If they didn't accept the treasure, it'd be because it didn't have enough value. If it was worth enough, even if it was too late, they would still devise some way to let you sell it in the auction. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang enter the treasure room anyways, Xiao Zifen and Zhao Yunxi glanced at each other before shrugging. Bailey Hongzhuang entered the treasure room and saw an elderly 60-something old man, his hand propping his chin as he slept. His head moved from time to time but never fell onto the desk. Senior. Bailey Hongzhuang called out. But the senior was clearly still sound asleep. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice wasn't enough to wake him. Senior. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her voice, calling again. Thump. The old man was awoken by the noise, his chin knocking heavily on the table. Aya. The old man rubbed his chin, panting with rage as he spoke. Who interrupted this old man's sleep? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Senior, I came to sell something. Chapter 175. A trace of shock flickered by the old man's eyes when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang. He rubbed his chin and sneered, such a pretty little girl. But even for a pretty little girl like you, disturbing an old man's sleep isn't appropriate. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow, her eyes crafty. From what she made out, the old man was very unhappy. Senior, you were sleeping when you should have been working. Isn't that even more inappropriate? The old man's face changed, cough, cough. This old man only closed his eyes. Why said I was sleeping? Didn't you just say I disturbed your sleep? The old man looked around before directly ignoring Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Little girl, what are you selling? I can examine it, but I'm afraid it's too late for it to make it into this auction. Hearing his words, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a white porcelain bottle from her space pouch. The old man looked at the white porcelain bottle, a trace of interest in his eyes. Usually, porcelain bottles held pills. Taking the bottle, the old man opened it, a strong medicinal smell permeating through the air. This is a bone-cleansing pill. The old man's face had a trace of astonishment. The bone-cleansing pill was a second-grade pill. It has the ability to cleanse the bone marrow. Everyone's bodies always had some impurities. The bone-cleansing pill would flush out all the impurities and as a result, make it easier to sense spirit power and speed cultivation. Although the bone-cleansing pill's rank wasn't very high, only a single pill master in all of Feng Bo country was able to refine it. So usually, a bone-cleansing pill was very rarely seen. Who knew how many cultivators were mad with envy when they heard that the second-place prize was a bone-cleansing pill? But how could this little girl have just taken out 3 bone-cleansing pills? He almost didn't even need to think. Just by bringing it to the auction, it had definitely become the finale, the star of the show. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Senior has good eyes. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, the old man's opinion of Bailey Hongzhuang changed a little. Pill masters were a special existence in Shengxian continent. The fact that she was able to bring out pills was proof that there was a pill master behind her. Since she was even able to bring out bone-cleansing pills, it meant that the pill master was a strong one. With this point, Bailey Hongzhuang's position in the old man's heart suddenly rose dramatically. Such a person must be treated well. Little girl, what should I call you? The old man asked. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. My humble self is named Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing the name Bailey Hongzhuang, the old man's face paused. So this beautiful little girl was actually the famous Bailey Hongzhuang. So it was actually Chen Wangfei. He smiled. This old man is Su Hongyuan. You may call me Old Su. Old Su. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands in greeting. Will my pills make today's auction? Su Hongyuan nodded. Of course it will. The 3 bone-cleansing pills are enough to become this auction's finale. Chen Wangfei can rest assured. It'll definitely be able to fetch a high price. This old man is the manager. The auction house won't take a single cent from this. Her limpid bright eyes filled with astonishment. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately waved. That isn't right. What's ought to be given should be given. Su Hongyuan shook his head, smiling. Just putting the 3 bone-cleansing pills in the auction is already enough to attract a large flock of people. At this point, it's already worth more than the fee. No matter what, I won't accept any commission. Chapter 176. Seeing Su Hongyuan so determined, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer refused. Then I'll thank Old Su. She knew that the most important thing about an auction was the quality of its goods. Even though Tianxiang was the biggest auction house in the imperial city, it still has to compete with other auction houses. Auction houses compete by comparing the quality of the treasures. The guests would then choose to go to whichever one had the more valuable treasures. The 3 bone-cleansing pills were enough to let Tianxiang win the auction, and also allowed Old Su to form a good relationship with her. If Chen Wangfei has similar treasures, we hope that you'll choose to sell them with Tianxiang auction. Old Su said smilingly. Certainly. Leaving the treasure examination room, Bailey Hongzhuang thought about Su Hongyuan's identity. The commission fee for the 3 bone-cleansing pills wasn't small at all. An ordinary worker shouldn't have been able to do that. It seems that Su Hongyuan's position in Tianxiang wasn't small at all. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked back to Xiao Zifen and Zhao Yunqi. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang return, Zhao Yunqi asked, "How was it? You couldn't catch the auction." These were the auction's rules. After all, the auction house always sends a brochure of all its items 2 days before the auction to the rich and powerful. How could it be so easy to more items in the auction? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, "I was lucky and made it just in time." Hearing her words, Zhao Yunqi and Xiao Zifen were shocked, staring at Bailey Hongzhuang in blank astonishment. They wondered if they misheard her. "It looks like you brought out something valuable." Xiao Zifen slowly started to understand what happened. Zhao Yunqi suddenly understood. So there was actually such a possibility. This time, she truly hadn't thought deeply enough. As the three talked, a premature voice interrupted their conversation. "Are you Bailey Hongzhuang?" Her sharp voice echoed with rudeness and disdain as if she didn't see anyone as her opponent. Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow. Did she know anyone with such an arrogant voice? Cocking her head, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the woman behind her. The woman seemed to be around 17. Her face was peerlessly beautiful, but the slight tilt of her chin revealed her arrogant nature. She was dressed in an ardent crimson dress, her body emitting a remote and aloof aura. Her style was very distinctive. But looking into her almond eyes filled with contempt, Bailey Hongzhuang already had no interest. "Dai Jiman!" Zhao Yunqi shouted, astonished. She didn't expect to see her here. Hearing Dai Jiman's name, Bailey Hongzhuang finally knew who the arrogant young woman in front of her was. Dai Jiman was the daughter of General Dai. Her appearance was outstanding with unsurpassed talent. Last year she had taken Azure Water School's assessment and successfully joined. Up until now, she had been cultivating inside Azure Water School. Nobody expected to see her at Tianxian auction today. Feng Bo country had a large number of generals, and 2 of them were especially famous. The first one was naturally Bailey Jintao, and the second was Dai Jiman's father, Dai Tianxiong, General Dai. Only, Bailey Hongzhuang never had any interactions with Dai Jiman. She had no idea why Dai Jiman was looking for her. Seeing how Bailey Hongzhuang still hadn't answered, Dai Jiman frowned and shouted again, "I asked you if you were Bailey Hongzhuang." Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow, "What?" When Dai Jiman came back, everyone was talking about Bailey Hongzhuang. She hadn't expected for a recruiting teacher to give Bailey Hongzhuang an invitation letter. An invitation letter from Azure Water School was a student's biggest honor. Everybody who got an invitation letter became one of Azure Water School's people. But, she never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to refuse the teacher's invitation. What was this? Trash like Bailey Hongzhuang managing to attract a teacher's interest was already a godsend, but she actually dared to refuse. Just who did she think she was? Originally she had wanted to teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson, but hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent words, Dai Jiman actually didn't know what to say. "I heard that you refused the teacher's invitation." Dai Jiman looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with contempt, "Don't think just because you're a little strong now, that there's nobody better than you in the whole world." Listening to Dai Jiman speak, Bailey Hongzhuang knew right away that she was deliberately trying to find trouble with her. "Are you jealous?" Bailey Hongzhuang slowly asked. The 3 words seemed to hit Dai Jiman's sore spot, her beautiful face quickly turning red with anger. "Me? Jealous of you?" Dai Jiman forced herself to suppress the burning hot anger rising in her heart. "You're dreaming. What do you have that deserves my jealousy? Since you aren't jealous, why are you saying so much nonsense?" Bailey Hongzhuang's answer wasn't light. Xiao Zifen and Zhao Yunqi watched. They admired Bailey Hongzhuang from the bottom of their hearts. Dai Jiman obviously came to pick a fight. If it was somebody else, they would have long gone mad with anger handling Dai Jiman. But Bailey Hongzhuang truly had skill. Not only did she remain calm, but instead, even managed to make Dai Jiman choke with anger. They've already started to faintly sympathize with Dai Jiman. They knew that even before, Bailey Yuyan's tongue was nothing compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's. Dai Jiman took a deep breath. She just couldn't understand Bailey Hongzhuang's style of thinking. How could this scene and the scene she imagined be so different? You dare to say my words are nonsense? Dai Jiman's eyes were merciless. I really don't understand where your arrogance comes from. Why wouldn't I dare to say that to you? Who do you think you are? Her eyes, deep like a calm pond, flashed with cold light. Bailey Hongzhuang's chin raised a little, the corners of her mouth forming a mocking smile. She, Bailey Hongzhuang, never liked other people provoking her. But some people just seem to have nothing to do and deliberately tries to pick a fight with her. Just because she didn't speak, doesn't mean that she was so easily bullied. Not just any Tom, Dick, or Jerry could come up and bully her. First, they needed to see if they had the qualifications. Xiao Zifen and the crowd could all clearly feel Bailey Hongzhuang's aura change. In just a few moments, her previously calm and approachable air instantly changed cold and ruthless. Ha, if you think you're really all so great just because Azure Water School gave you a little attention, you trash, don't blame me for becoming your opponent. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's change, Dai Jiman was also furious. She was a student of the grand and magnificent Azure Water School, how could she dare to talk to her like that? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. You called me trash, so I'll ask you, if I, trash, could get an invitation letter from Azure Water School, then what would you, who couldn't even get an invitation letter, be considered as? You court death. Dai Jiman finally reached her extreme. She reached for her waist, bringing out a long whip. Chapter 178. With her blazing whip, fiery clothes, and her rude, arrogant character, everything truly matched perfectly. Snap! The long whip struck the ground, causing a crisp sound to echo in the air. A crack appeared on the place the whip struck it, clearly displaying its power. I'll show you what I am. Her voice falling, Dai Jiman didn't hold anything back as she struck the whip mercilessly towards Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Seeing this scene, everybody's face changed. Nobody expected Dai Jiman to be so vicious, aiming directly for Bailey Hongzhuang's face. They didn't doubt that, if the whip was truly brandished against Bailey Hongzhuang, it would be impossible to avoid getting her flesh shredded. Her beautiful, exquisite face would be covered in hideous scars. The corners of Dai Jiman's mouth curved into a proud smile. Just wait until she destroyed Bailey Hongzhuang's face, then she'd like to see how Bailey Hongzhuang could be so arrogant. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed coldly. She and Dai Jiman didn't have any relationship between them whatsoever. But today, she just appeared and immediately wanted to destroy her face. If nobody offended her, she wouldn't offend them. If somebody offended her, she would pay them back 100 times the pain. The next moment, under everybody's shocked eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang faced the whip head first, neither dodging or hiding. Very soon, the whip would hit her face. Be careful. Xiao Zifen couldn't help but shout. Everything happened too suddenly. They never thought that Dai Jiman would actually directly attack, not caring about the sight. Before he could do anything, it was already too late. Drip. Drip. The sound of blood dripping onto the cold, hard floor echoed as everybody stared at the scene, almost forgetting to even breathe. Bailey Hongzhuang's left hand was grabbing Dai Jiman's long whip. Although blood dripped down her fingers, an enchanting smile still bloomed on her breathtakingly beautiful face. They didn't need to look to imagine how deep the wounds on Bailey Hongzhuang's hand must be. But looking at the smile still on her face, everybody could only feel something was off. Fun. Red lips gently opening, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was filled with charm as if everything was just a joke. Dai Jimon swallowed as she looked at such a strange Bailey Hongzhuang. She didn't know why, but her heart actually had a sense of dread. She knew just how strong her whip was just now. But she simply didn't understand. How did Bailey Hongzhuang manage to grab her whip at full speed? Since you seem to like destroying other people's faces so much, why don't I give you a taste? Her eyes that were black like a calm pond was swept into a terrifying storm. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly moved, her fingers covered in silver needles, slapping directly at Dai Jimon's face. Dai Jimon immediately understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant and hurriedly tried to swing back her whip before once more striking it at Bailey Hongzhuang. But, the whip was still in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. She gripped even tighter, not giving Dai Jimon a chance to recover her whip. Pa! With a sound of a crisp slap accompanying a loud scream, everyone sucked in a cold breath. On Dai Jimon's haughty face was 5 fine bloody streaks. With the fresh blood continuously flowing down her face, it was both hideous and horrifying. Feeling the pain on her face, Dai Jimon subconsciously touched her face. Seeing her hands covered in blood, her face instantly turned pale. Ah! Dai Jimon screeched, "You dared to ruin my face." Chapter 179, You wanted to destroy mine, so why can't I ruin yours? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent. Even after dealing such a hand, her appearance was the same as ever. I never like to provoke others, but the next time somebody comes to find trouble with me, I won't be polite. Bailey Hongzhuang's face suddenly turned cold, traces of ice swirling in her eyes as her gaze swept over the crowd. Everybody's face changed. In that moment, they all knew that the trash known as Bailey Hongzhuang was only a thing in the past. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had already made a name for herself, nobody took it to heart because their image of the trash, Bailey Hongzhuang, was still deeply rooted in their hearts. But in this moment, looking at her cold face, everybody knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer a disgraced waste. She was a true talent. Whoever dares to provoke her must bear her wrath. A man wearing a forest green embroidered robe entered Tianxiang Auction's lobby. Seeing Dai Jimon's figure, he exposed a smile. But when the man saw her face, his complexion suddenly changed. "Jimon, what happened to you?" Seeing the man come, Dai Jimon seemed to finally found her backbone, immediately wailing, "Lu Gij, you must take revenge for me." Gij equals big brother Lu Jingkuan was also a student of Azure Water School and was in love with Dai Jimon. Since he heard Dai Jimon went back to the imperial city, he followed her and returned as well. Now seeing the beauty in distress, Lu Jingkuan naturally wouldn't shrink from his duty to protect the flower. "Who did this?" Lu Jingkuan roared angrily. "I did it." Bailey Hongzhuang slowly spoke, "You're here to avenge her." Lu Jingkuan was filled with anger, his hands reaching towards Bailey Hongzhuang. But when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's face, he couldn't help but freeze. Goodness, what a beautiful woman. Until now, he had always thought that Dai Jimon was already very pretty. But compared to the woman in front of him, Dai Jimon was completely overshadowed. "You did this?" Lu Jingkuan asked, "What's your name?" "Bailey Hongzhuang." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed ruthlessly, "If you want to fight, then fight. I don't have that much spare time to waste with you." Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's tone, everybody was speechless. This Bailey Hongzhuang was truly insane. Lu Jingkuan's cultivation was at the middle stage of mysterious awe. Bailey Hongzhuang not only didn't back down, but even took the initiative to provoke him. "Lu Gij, what are you waiting for? Help me destroy her face." Dai Jimon urged him. "Oh. Okay." Lu Jingkuan's eyes flashed with hesitation. He didn't know if he should fight or not. Facing such a beauty, he didn't think any man would be able to act ruthlessly. Just as Lu Jingkuan was hesitating, Tianxiang's auction staff entered the lounge. The staff member looked at the scene in front of him. Before he had entered, he already heard the whole story. He never expected for Dai Jiman to appear in the auction house. Tianxiang trading commerce covered all of Xingxian continent. Their strength naturally needn't be said. No matter who it was, they would all have to give Tianxiang trading commerce some face. Even if there was resentment, the guests would have to solve it after the auction. Otherwise, that wouldn't be giving them face. Over the last few years, so long as a cultivator even so much dared to release their spirit power, they would already be written and blacklisted by Tianxiang trading commerce. Nowadays, nobody even thought of making trouble at Tianxiang. When everyone saw Tianxiang auction staff appear, they knew in their hearts that the battle was finished. Dai Jiman and Bailey Hongzhuang were out of luck. Chapter 180. Although Tianxiang trading commerce was rather low-key nowadays, everybody knew that Tianxiang wasn't a good target to pick a fight with. Even the royal family would have to give Tianxiang a little face. Because even though the royal family had absolute control in Fengbo country, Tianxiang trading commerce spanned the entire Xingxian continent. By comparison, Tianxiang trading commerce's strength was far more astonishing. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and Dai Jiman caused trouble in a Tianxiang auction house, it was very much possible for them to be blacklisted by Tianxiang. This wasn't a laughing matter. Many stores were under the banner of Tianxiang trading commerce. If cultivators wanted to buy cultivation-related things, they would have to buy it from Tianxiang. But if they were blacklisted, their choices would be too narrow. Miss Dai, Chen Wangfei, the auction is about to begin. I hope you two could give me some face and temporarily set your disputes aside, okay? Shopkeeper Su Xingchuan spoke out. His face was amiable and approachable, with not the slightest hint of anger. Bailey Hongzhuang held back the ice in her eyes and smiled. I'm truly sorry for interrupting Tianxiang trading commerce's auction. Hearing her words, Su Xingchuan glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang. In the twinkle of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang was able to hold back her anger and completely change her expression smoothly with ease. Just with this point alone, he knew right away that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't simple. Not only that, but he also already knew that Dai Jiman provoked Bailey Hongzhuang first, but Bailey Hongzhuang still apologized. From that, he knew she was very open-minded. Chen Wangfei's too serious. We're truly honored to have you participate in our Tianxiang auction. Bailey Hongzhuang only smiled. In that instant, she knew Su Xianchun wasn't simple either. This man's cultivation was higher than every single one of the people in the lounge. That fact alone was enough to be admired. But, such a powerful man like Su Xianchun was no more than staff member at Tianxiang auction house. It seemed that she had truly underestimated Tianxiang trading commerce. Dai Jiman didn't have such a good attitude. Bailey Hongzhuang ruined my looks. If you think that I'll let her go, you're dreaming. Hearing her words, Su Xianchun still smiled warmly. So then, does that mean you don't want to give us Tianxiang trading commerce any face? Following Su Xianchun's words, everybody could clearly sense the air tense. Everyone wiped a cold sweat for Dai Jiman. This little girl truly didn't know her own strength. Although Dai Jiman didn't understand, Lu Jingkuan understood what Su Xianchun really meant. Once Su Xianchun blacklisted them, all the shops under Tianxiang trading commerce would close their doors to them. At that time, it'd be too terrible to be described as bad. Shopkeeper Su, we were wrong and we apologize. Lu Jingkuan spoke up. Su Xingchuan frowned. Dai Jiman was truly too arrogant, actually refusing to give the Tianxiang Trading Company any face. Lu Jingkuan was embarrassed. He used one hand to block Dai Jiman as he spoke, "Shopkeeper Su, please be at ease. The conflict ends here." Hearing that, Su Xingchuan glanced at them coldly before nodding, "Good." After Su Xingchuan left, Lu Jingkuan whispered in Dai Jiman's ear, "Jiman, don't worry, I'll definitely help you get revenge. But first, wait for the auction to end, okay?" After hearing his words, the originally fighting Dai Jiman suddenly quietened and nodded her head, "Fine. But when the moment comes, you must kill her." "No problem." From Bailey Hongzhuang and Su Xingchuan's conversation, Lu Jingkuan knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was married and clearly had no relation with him whatsoever. So, killing was just killing. "Master, those two wanted to kill you after the auction ended," Little Black said angrily. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twisted into a sneer, "Just let them try. That pair of cheating dogs. I'm angry just thinking about them." Little White despised them, "Master, you don't need to kill them. I'll do it myself. When the time comes I will send them to hell." It was their fault that they could not see clearly. Little Black and Little White's eyes twinkled with excitement. The two's actions were truly unforgivable. Until now, Master had always kept herself quiet and low profile. This time they really bullied Master, so now they would make her pay the price in blood. "Jiman, don't be too angry. We're Azure Water School students. We can sit in first class, other people can only take second class." Lu Jingkuan smiled. Tianxiang auction seats were also carefully chosen and separate between first class, second class, and third class by status. First class seats were the most comfortable, and had a better view of the auction stage. Second place was slightly worse, and third was very crowded. Although anyone was allowed to participate in the competition, your seat was a symbol of your identity. True. Dai Jiman's face revealed a smile as she spoke. She glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang, "Those people who can only get second, I really wonder how they could be so arrogant." Bailey Hongzhuang's face was doubtful. She didn't know the difference between the classes. Xiao Zifen whispered into Bailey Hongzhuang's ear, "We of the younger generation can only sit in second class, and the commoners sit in third. Only the rich and powerful had the right to sit in first class." Bailey Hongzhuang slowly nodded her head. She didn't really care all that much. So what if they have a first-class seat? It's nothing to be so proud of. Zhao Yunxi couldn't help but complain. Now she suddenly felt that Li Yuyue wasn't all that bad. Compared to Li Yuyue, that woman was even more arrogant. Dai Jiman's eyes shined as she raised her chin, "You have to have skill." Bailey Hongzhuang didn't expect for Zhao Yunxi to actually suddenly help her speak. Just as she opened her mouth, a Tianxiang servant walked in front of them. "Chen Wangfei, the shopkeeper would like to say that as an honored guest, a VIP viewing box has already been prepared for you and your two friends." Hearing those words, Dai Jiman's proud face immediately froze. What? What did he say? A VIP viewing box had already been prepared for Bailey Hongzhuang. What qualifications did Bailey Hongzhuang have? Lu Jingkuan was also stunned. Even in all of Fengbo country, hardly anyone had the qualifications to get a VIP viewing box, so how could Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Hongzhuang was also somewhat doubtful. From Dai Jiman and Lu Jingkuan's faces, she knew that this VIP viewing box was very rare. It was clearly even better than the first-class seats. "Prepared for me? Why?" Her monochrome eyes were filled with suspicion. She and Tianxiang trading commerce had no friendly relations. If it was only because of what happened earlier, it'd really be too far-fetched. The attendant's face smiled politely, softly explaining, "Chen Wangye is our Tianxiang VIP. Since you are Chen Wangfei, you're naturally allowed to enter the VIP viewing box as well." Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood. She didn't expect that it was only because of Dibei Chen. That guy. With his identity, he really did have the qualifications to become Tianxiang's VIP. After the attendant left, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly raised, forming a smile elegant like a hibiscus. I only have a VIP box and can't have a first-class seat. Yep, I truly envy you guys. Dai Jiman and Lu Jingquan's faces turned somewhat ugly. Everybody was staring at them mockingly. Xian Yuan Huan stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. He really had no idea that Dibei Chen, that trash, could actually be Tianxiang's VIP. Even if it was he relying on the royal family's identity to get a VIP viewing box, he still wouldn't be able to get one. So how could Dibei Chen possibly have the ability to get one? The auction is about to begin. Let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke, looking at Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunqi. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Zhao Yunqi's eyes were filled with a pleasant surprise. Me. I can go too. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and nodded, of course. Zhao Yunqi beamed. She had always been curious about what was inside the legendary VIP viewing box. She never thought that she would get a chance to see it today. The three no longer hesitated, directly leaving to the VIP viewing box. As the three left, everyone else also slowly headed to the auction hall. Dai Jiman looked in the direction Bailey Hongzhuang left, angrily stomping her foot. She wanted to use today to walk all over Bailey Hongzhuang, but didn't expect to lose face herself. The attendant led Bailey Hongzhuang and her group to the viewing box. The 4x4 box was on the second floor, overlooking the entire auction hall clearly. The box was very spacious and cozy. The seats were spongy and very comfortable to sit in. There was a table in the middle of the box, the highest quality tea and exquisite pastries already prepared and laid out. 3 catalogs of the auction's item also sat there for them to flip through. Sizing up the box, Zhao Yunqi's face was filled with astonishment. A VIP's treatment truly is different. Compared with the environment below, I don't know how many times better the box is. Last time she came to the auction, she could only have a second-class seat. Originally she had thought that the second-class seat already wasn't bad, but seeing inside the VIP viewing box, she could truly sense the disparity between the two. Xiao Zifan felt the same, nodding his head. The VIP viewing box is arranged beautifully, refined and elegant yet cozy and snug. Sitting below in the auction hall, it always felt a little too hot. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips rose into a smile. Tianxiang has very few VIPs, so this VIP box is naturally as perfect as possible. She had no choice but to concede. Tianxiang truly was worth its position on Shengxian continent. They really did have a mind for business. By distributing the classes so clearly, they could invoke the competitive spirits inside people's hearts so that they couldn't only be satisfied with their current status. It made people want an even higher one. Otherwise, Dai Jiman and Lu Jingquan wouldn't have been so satisfied with their first-class seats. Chapter 183. Dai Jiman took a seat. This was her first time participating in the Tianxiang auction with a first-class seat. At first, she was very excited. But when she thought about Bailey Hongzhuang in her VIP box, she felt a burst of anger. How could that woman be able to get a VIP box? At that time, as one of the Imperial City's cultivators who took Azure Water School's exam and passed, her future was limitless. This was her first time coming back, so she thought that she would become the center of attention. But no, everyone was talking about Bailey Hongzhuang instead. Asking around a little, she was astonished. How could Bailey Hongzhuang get Azure Water School's invitation letter? As Azure Water School's student, she was very clear just how significant an invitation letter was. But, that only made her feel even more jealous. And the thing she couldn't stand the most. Was that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually married to Dibei Chen? How could that be? Bailey Hongzhuang picked up the auction's catalog. Earlier, she'd never even got to take a look. So now, she just wanted to see if there was anything she wanted in the auction. At this moment, Zhao Yunxi inspected Bailey Hongzhuang's face and suddenly spoke. Bailey Hongzhuang, do you know why Dai Jiman was so intent on attacking you? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. Because I got Azure Water School's invitation letter. Zhao Yunxi nodded but then shook her head. That's only one reason. There's another reason for her hate. A touch of confusion fell into her eyes, black like a deep pond. Other than that, she didn't know why Dai Jiman would suddenly pick a fight with her. Xiao Zifen immediately thought about Zhao Yunxi's words, and his face immediately turned a bit helpless. What is it? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. In the past, Dai Jiman liked Dibei Chen. The words rang still. Bailey Hongzhuang widened her eyes in shock. She thought of many possibilities, but never believed that it'd be because of that. Dibei Chen, Dai Jiman actually liked Dibei Chen. Even though both of Chen Wanye's legs are crippled, many women inside the imperial city still admire Dibei Chen. After all, a man with such beauty and grace is truly rare in the world. Originally, the emperor had intended to betroth Dai Jiman to Chen Wanye, especially since everybody knew that she liked him. But in the end, Chen Wanye refused. Over the past 3 years, the emperor had been constantly finding marriage candidates for Chen Wanye, but Chen Wanye didn't agree once. Zhao Yunxi looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, her face somewhat strange, but then when Prime Minister Li proposed an idea to betroth you to Chen Wanye actually agreed. That was something almost nobody could believe. Until now, Chen Wanye always refused to get married, tactfully declining the emperor and paying no mind. But with Bailey Hongzhuang, Dibei Chen not only did agree but even dared to offend the general's household and made a big display of sending the betrothal gifts just to have the perfect wedding with Bailey Hongzhuang. From this, it was obvious that Dibei Chen truly loved Bailey Hongzhuang. Under such a big gap, how could Dai Jiman accept it? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes twinkled with astonishment. Seeing Xiao Zifen nod along, she knew that everything was true. It seems that she was disdained because of Dibei Chen's charm. Women in the imperial city just loved him too much. So it's like that. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. But, now at least there's proof that Chen Wanye really has great taste. Zhao Yunxi looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. At first, she couldn't understand why Dibei Chen ignored the other girls and chose trash instead. Chapter 184. But now she realized, amongst all the people in the imperial city, only Chen Wanye was able to see clearly. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and didn't speak. She hadn't known that Zhao Yunxi was always so attentive with Dibei Chen. Speaking of Dibei Chen, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes changed a little. She didn't know how he was doing now. Looking at the auction catalog in her hands, Bailey Hongzhuang that there were actually quite a few treasures. Weapons, medicinal ingredients, cultivation scripts, martial arts skills, etc. It had everything a cultivator needed. It seemed like this Jianxiang auction house had been preparing for quite some time. This time she had come to find a weapon for herself, but even after flipping through the catalog again and again, she still couldn't find anything that really suited her. She naturally didn't want ordinary, common weapons. If there wasn't anything right for her today, she'd just have to wait. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to give up, her eyes suddenly froze on the last page. It was a sword with a completely blue handle. Ice-chilling sword. The wind released from it alone was enough to make cuts. With incomparable sharpness, the blade itself was filled with a cold aura. The longer you fight, the more powerful its aura would be. It was actually a very good treasure. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint smile. It seems like she had finally found a decent weapon. While Bailey Hongzhuang was searching for a good weapon, Xiao Zifan and Zhao Yunxi were also flipping through the catalogs. Since they came here, they naturally hoped that the trip hadn't been made in vain. Soon, an old man in an embroidered black robe appeared on the stage. The old man's age seemed to be around 50, his eyes bright as he looked at the crowd below him, a smile on his face. I thank everyone for making time out of their busy days to attend Tianxiang Auction House's auction. I am the auction master, Su Jin. Everyone turned to face Su Jin. Now that he, the auction master, appeared, the auction was definitely going to start soon. I won't say too much. Surely nobody likes trivial words, so we'll be directly starting the auction now. A burst of applause sounded from the audience. This old man's quick and straightforward opening speech gained everybody's favor. The old man raised his left hand and a woman in a red dress slowly walked onto the auction stage, carefully setting down a tray. The woman's figure was very good, with beautiful curves in all the right places. The way she walked looked even more charming, attracting everybody's attention. Even after the woman left the stage, many men still stared in her direction. This is the first product of today's auction, Embrued Blood Blade. The old man lifted the red silk, allowing everyone to see the embrued blood blade. Embrued blood blade, a sword dyed with blood. It's a great option for raids and assassinations, or for practical self-defense. Not only that, but it's extremely light, making it extremely convenient to carry around and hard to discover. It's a pretty good sword to choose. The old man raised the embrued blood blade, allowing the guests to see it more clearly. Only a sliver of scarlet could be seen from its silver-white surface. The name and sword truly complemented each other. Sitting inside the VIP box, Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Zifan, and Zhao Yunxi were all able to clearly see the sword. Tianxiang's VIP box seemed to have some magical way of magnifying the object, so even though they were quite far away from the stage, they could still easily see the imbued blood blade. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the imbued blood blade. It was indeed a good weapon. It was only the first item, but the quality was already so good. That alone showed Tianxiang auction standard. Chapter 185 Imbued Blood Blade. Bidding starts at 4,000 gold coins, and every increase in bid must not be less than 1,000 gold coins. The auction starts now. Just as Su Jin's voice fell, shouts began to echo in the hall, raising the price higher and higher. 5,000 gold coins. 6,000 gold coins. As soon as one shouted, another person would bid even higher. The scene was very lively. 9,000 gold coins. 10,000 gold coins. In such a short time, the imbued blood blade's price was already raised to 10,000. But after every call, some of the buyers would no longer bid. For an auction, the price of an imbued blood sword already wasn't bad. 11,000 gold coins. Another one shouted. Su Jin's face revealed a smile. A guest bided 11,000 gold coins, 11,000 gold coins. Would anyone like to bid higher? Just after Su Jin asked, another voice called out, 12,000 gold coins. 12,000 gold coins. Anyone higher? Everybody fell silent. The price of the imbued blood sword in the auction was already very high. In the audience, the owner of the imbued blood blade smiled as he saw everyone bid for the sword. Compared to just selling it at the shop, selling it here was far more profitable. 12,000 gold coins, sold. Su Jin raised the small hammer and hit the gong. The loud, heavy sound of the hammer echoed clearly in everybody's ears, declaring the end of the first auction item. Congratulations to the new owner of this imbued blood sword. Tianxiang Auction's people took the lead to start clapping, followed by applause from the audience. At Su Jin's right-hand side, the bewitching figure of the woman dressed in red once again walked to the stage. She took the tray and walked in front of the guest, handing him the embued blood sword. Under everybody's applause and the beauty's smile, the man accepted the embued blood sword, grinning. It's no wonder Qianxiang auction's so amazing. It's already clear from the first item. Little White sighed. Their grasp and knowledge of how humans thought were truly outstanding. Bailey Hongzhuang faintly nodded. Qianxiang trading commerce methods are truly indescribable. The embued blood blade was no way worth 12,000 gold coins, but because it was from Qianxiang auction, they would be happy even if they paid a little more. She was convinced that the next time the man wanted to join an auction, he would definitely choose Qianxiang's. After the first item, different products kept on getting called and brought up, but Bailey Hongzhuang's group still hadn't bid once. The next one is called Mysterious Star Sword. Su Jin teared open the red silk, a silver sword appearing in front of everybody. The sword cuts iron like clay. The wind from this alone can make cuts, truly an excellent weapon. You mustn't miss this brilliant opportunity. Xiao Zifen, who had up until now been quietly watching the auction, suddenly got up, staring intently at the mysterious star sword. Seeing Xiao Zifen change, Bailey Hongzhuang asked, "You like the mysterious star sword?" Xiao Zifen smiled and nodded. "This mysterious star sword is pretty good. I'm leaving for Azure Water School's assessment soon, so I want to at least find a nice weapon for myself." "Go for it. Get that weapon." Zhao Yinshi smiled. Mysterious Star Sword, bidding starts at 30,000 gold coins. Each increasement must be less than 1,000 gold coins. Start the auction. 31,000 gold coins. 32,000 gold coins. The second-class guests had already started making their bids, and the third-class guests could only shake their head and watch. Chapter 186. The auction's price had already gone far above their limit. Even on the journey of cultivation, it was impossible without enough money. 40,000 gold coins. The price was called very quickly. In such a short time, Mysterious Star Sword had already gone above the 50,000 mark. After 50,000 gold coins, not many cultivators would continue to bid. 51,000 gold coins. Xiao Zifen began to bid. He knew that if he quoted a price at the beginning, it'd be impossible to get the sword. It would be better to bid after there were less competitors. Dai Jiman was somewhat bored as she sat in the first-class seats. But when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang's auction box make a bid, her eyes suddenly turned bright. A sinister smile made its way onto her face. "I'll let you pay part of the price, daring to offend me." 52,000 gold coins. Dai Jiman's voice echoed in the auction hall. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. Dai Jiman fights with a whip, not a sword. Clearly, she was doing this on purpose. 53,000 gold coins. Xiao Zifen shouted again. 54,000 gold coins. Dai Jiman immediately yelled afterward. No matter what price Xiao Zifen called, Dai Jiman would always quote the price added with another 1,000 gold coins. Even though she and Xiao Zifen never had any conflicts, since he was in Bailey Hongzhuang's group, he's also a target. Seeing Dai Jiman so relentless, Xiao Zifen started to get a bit angry. The other competitors had long given up. If it wasn't for Dai Jiman, the mysterious star sword would have long been his. 60,000 gold coins. Xiao Zifen added on 5,000 gold coins at once. His irritation was clear to see. Seeing Xiao Zifen get angry, Dai Jiman's smile widened. 61,000 gold coins. Everybody watched as Dai Jiman and Xiao Zifen competed. Dai Jiman was clearly raising the price on purpose. Dai Zhirong and Bailey Hongzhuang's earlier fight was so eye-catching that it was impossible for nobody there to know. But Daijimon's hateful way of raising the price like that was just truly too disgusting. The one thing everybody hated most when bidding in an auction, was meeting a person like that. The money would be wasted for no good reason. And it wasn't even any of their money being extorted. It was truly too dirty. Su Jin was also paying attention to the little bidding war. As the auctioneer, it was his job to get the product's value up as high as possible. So, the scene in front of him was very much to his liking. No matter whose hand the mysterious star sword made it into, they would still make a huge profit. 70,000 gold coins. Xiao Zifen bid it again, gnashing his teeth in frustration and anger. 71,000 gold coins. Daijimon still smiled, but her heart was a little surprised. It was already amazing that the sword could go above 50,000 gold coins, but he continued to bid even as she kept raising the price. From this, it was obvious that Xiao Zifen liked the sword very much. When Xiao Zifen heard Daijimon call out 71,000 gold coins, his whole body fell soft. Today he had only come with 70,000 gold coins. He had thought that was all he needed to find a good weapon, but he hadn't expected Daijimon to wreck everything. Not bidding? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Xiao Zifen shook his head helplessly. I don't have enough. Zhao Yunxi's face was red with anger. This Daijimon is truly too much. Shameless. No gentleman would take away another's beloved. Daijimon was simply too despicable. Daijimon waited for Xiao Zifen to bid again, but she was alarmed to find that even after a long time, there was no sound. Her face couldn't help but change. Xiao Zifen didn't give up, right? She didn't need the mysterious star sword. If she bidded for the thing and then didn't want it, it'd be tantamount to breaking the auction house's rules. That wasn't what she wanted to see. 71,000, calling once. 71,000, calling twice. Everyone's face couldn't help but turn a little mocking. They all knew Xiao Zifen was the only one that really wanted the mysterious star sword. So if the sword fell into Daijimon's hands, she wouldn't even have enough tears to cry with because of her greed. 71,000, calling thrice. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly opened her mouth. 72,000 gold coins. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang shout, Daijimon felt herself relax. Fortunately, she no longer had to buy the weapon. She was still a bit scared just looking at the sword. Her face was rather unsightly. This, Xiao Zifen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, astonished. Although, that was 72,000 gold coins. Bailey Hongzhuang faintly smiled. Daijimon targeted you because of me. Since you were just dragged into it, I'll gift the mysterious star sword to you. If it wasn't for her, Xiao Zifen wouldn't have had any problems getting the sword himself. He wouldn't have had to suffer despite being completely innocent. She truly felt regretful for that. How can that do? Xiao Zifen immediately refused. This weapon is mine, so how could I let you pay? It doesn't matter. We're friends, it's normal for friends to send gifts to each other. No. Xiao Zifen firmly shook his head. First you'll lend me 2,000 gold coins, and I'll pay you back once I get home. Watching Xiao Zifen relentlessly refuse, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh a little. So be it. Since you're so determined, how about you pay the original price of the sword, 50,000 gold coins? The rest, I will. Xiao Zifen was startled and opened his mouth to speak. Before he could say something, Bailey Hongzhuang hurriedly spoke first. If you refuse, I will feel very regretful. Hearing her words, Xiao Zifen could only nod. Then thank you. That's what you should have said from the beginning. Thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, but a layer of frost tinted her eyes. Daijimon was always finding some way to attack her. Now, she's even targeting her friends. As soon as the auction's finished, she must make her pay the price. The auction still continued. From beginning to end, Daijimon and Lu Jingquan hadn't tried to buy a thing. Just now, they forced Xiao Zifan to pay an extra 32,000. How could Bailey Hongzhuang not be waiting for a chance to get revenge? No way will they be giving Bailey Hongzhuang a chance for revenge. The next item of the auction is actually for a woman. Soaring snake skin, the best in its category for defense. Wearing it will definitely save your life one day. As a cultivator, we often encounter life and death situations. This premium snakeskin is the first choice. Everyone, there's no need to hesitate. The starting price is 40,000 gold coins. Bidding starts now. Zhao Yunxi froze as she stared at the red, colorful leather. She really wanted it. 50,000 gold coins. Zhao Yunxi shouted. Hearing Zhao Yunxi's bid, the audience fell quiet with astonishment. By raising the price by 10,000 gold coins, it was obvious how much she wanted it. Daijimon smiled once again. That was Zhao Yunxi's voice. 51,000 gold coins. Daijimon called. Chapter 188. When everyone heard Daijimon bid again, they all immediately gave up on the snakeskin. With that troublemaker, other than being a foolish spendthrift, there was no way they could get the snakeskin armor. The situation Zhao Yunxi feared most happened right before her eyes. Daijimon was doing it again. 65,000 gold coins. Zhao Yunxi called. 66,000 gold coins. Daijimon smiled proudly. Bullying people felt so good. Seeing Daijimon act so indifferently, Zhao Yunxian became so angry that her face flushed red. Angry, she suddenly shouted, Daijimon, you are acting overboard. Daijimon did not think Zhao Yunxian would suddenly call out her name. But she did not mind as her smile became increasingly pleased. I'm just bidding, what right do you have to stop me from bidding? You purposely causing havoc, anyone can clearly see it. So what? What can you do about it? Daijimon continued to smile, it's just Zhao Yunxian, she can bully her as much as she likes. At this time a cold voice sounded from the box, a person without principles is invincible, you have really brought this phrase to the point of perfection. After that one line, Daijimon's expression changed as she no longer had a gleeful smile. Everyone was stunned. The phrase, a person without principles is invincible, this was the first time they had heard of such a saying, but it made a lot of sense. The previous actions of Daijimon were perfected interpreted by that single phrase. You dare call me unprincipled? Daijimon stood up and glared at the box above. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved up as she replied, some people were born shameless, so why do I have to give them any face? Bailey Hongzhuang. You are courting death. Daijimon was furious, every word this Bailey Hongzhuang was simply just face-smacking. Cohesiveness flashed in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, her gaze was as sharp as a knife, it seems that the punishment I gave you before was not enough. If you have the guts, say one more line. I will make you regret that you were born to this world. As the cold, chilling voice sounded, with a domineering arrogance in her tone of voice, a breathtaking aura erupted. It was no longer a threat, but a final ultimatum. Everyone's face changed, they had never seen this side of Bailey Hongzhuang. From her speech, everyone felt a powerful pressure upon them. The feeling was like a final verdict from a master. It was usual for anyone to think of this opinion to be comical, as although Bailey Hongzhuang was talented, but Daijimon had already studied at Azure Water School for a year. So in comparison, out of the two, Daijimon is stronger than Bailey Hongzhuang by a tier, so how could she take Daijimon's life? So in this situation, from Bailey Hongzhuang's cold tone, who did not think that she was being overconfident? Daijimon looked distracted, in that short moment, she was overwhelmed by Bailey Hongzhuang's aura. Bailey Hongzhuang. Who do you think you are? Dai Jiman sneered, just because you have some talent, doesn't mean you can act lawlessly. If I wanted to take care of you, I have many methods to choose from. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled as she replied back, Dai Jiman, tomorrow at Wu time, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., life or death battle, do you dare to fight? In the continent of Xingxian, conflicts between practitioners were common. And when the conflict got too big to resolve through words, some practitioners decided to duke it out with a life or death battle. When they agree to a life or death battle, they were fated to either win or die. No matter who died, the other party was not held responsible. Although a life or death battle was well known, but in the younger generations of the imperial city, it has never occurred. Chapter 189. After all, their family backgrounds weren't bad. Even if there were conflicts, people could use any other possible method to deal with it. Nobody would choose to pay the price with their life. When Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned a life and death battle, everyone couldn't help but gasp. Life and death battle? Bailey Hongzhuang actually wants a life and death battle? It looks like Bailey Hongzhuang isn't just arrogant. A life and death battle isn't a joke, ah. This is Dai Jiman's third time provoking Bailey Hongzhuang, so it's no wonder that she'd be mad. But her challenge really was unexpected. Dai Jiman also didn't expect for Bailey Hongzhuang to suddenly request a life and death duel and was a bit surprised. But after, her lips curled into a small sneer. Originally she was going to kill Bailey Hongzhuang after the auction, but since Bailey Hongzhuang was courting death herself, she'll send Bailey Hongzhuang to hell. She knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was in the early stage of Mysterious Ian, but her own strength had already reached the intermediate stage. Tomorrow she would let Bailey Hongzhuang see the difference between Mysterious Ian's early stage and intermediate stage. Fine. Dai Jiman's voice was still proud, Bailey Hongzhuang, at that time, I'll let you beg for mercy. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled coldly, tomorrow, you will die. Humph. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang refusing to concede, Dai Jiman coldly snorted. Today she would let Bailey Hongzhuang be as arrogant as she wanted. Tomorrow, she would destroy Bailey Hongzhuang's face in front of everyone. Face meaning prestige, reputation, etc., not literally her face as in looks. Xianyuan Huan watched Bailey Hongzhuang and Dai Jiman argue in astonishment. He never thought that after meeting each other for the first time, it had already turned into a duel between life and death. Right now, Bailey Hongzhuang was truly different from her original self. Zhao Yunqi's eyes were huge, even forgetting to close her mouth. Earlier she simply couldn't put up with Dai Jiman's conducts and deeds and got up to argue with Dai Jiman. She never thought it'd get this serious. Bailey Hongzhuang, I only spoke because I got a bit angry, how could you request for a life and death duel, ah? If by any chance you lose, won't you? Won't. Zhao Yunqi said anxiously. Seeing Zhao Yunqi's worried face, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled a little. It was just as Xiao Zifan said. Although Zhao Yunqi's temper was a little impulsive, her intentions weren't bad at all. Before today, there had always been a small barrier between her and Zhao Yunqi. She didn't expect that because of Dai Jiman, the barrier would be erased in anger against a common enemy. Xiao Zifan's face was also worried, you were really too reckless. I heard Dai Jiman already broke through into the intermediate stage of Mysterious Ian. With that and her experience in Azure Water School, you aren't her opponent, ah.